Missionary Apostle Tavonga Vutabwashe and Pastor C. Vutabwashe and the Marketplace Board, I would like to welcome all church leaders and pastors in the room, all captains of industry, our invited guests, to this year 2025 Market Breakthrough Summit. I'd like us all to feel at home. Before we get into our program, I would like to share with you a few housekeeping issues. Our bathrooms are on my left. There is a door on my left. When you go through that door, our bathrooms are on our extreme left. I'd also like to kindly ask you to put your phones on vibrate so that you don't miss your important calls and we do not also disturb the proceedings of our event. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first speaker. He is a man of many jackets, and once he gets onto the stage, he will share with you what he has to share with us. May we listen carefully and take it to heart and into our businesses. Let's welcome Dr. Rinos Mautsa.
Oh, thank you so much. I think you can have yours. Thank you so much. All right. I know I've been given 30 minutes, and I'm going to stick to that time. And it's such an honor to be here, and a huge privilege. And I salute the men of God who have afforded us such an opportunity. I know there are many people in the industry who are equally good and even better who could have been here. So just to be here is such a huge privilege, and I salute him and Amai. And I also want to salute the leadership of this church for inviting us and organizing such an event. And I do believe such things don't just happen. Someone is going to be impacted, and millionaires are going to be raised, and someone is going to be changed, to become also a change. So many times it's so easy when you are invited to such forums to just think that I'm just going to learn. But I do believe when you are coming to such events, you have to come with that mindset of expectation. And you also, because we're in a setting, an atmosphere of faith, we are believers. So when you are coming to such events, you need to also to pray to say, God, change my story. Because I do believe one moment that can change your the one encounter can really transform you and change your story forever. And you become also an impact, and you change others as well. So I'm going to talk briefly about entrepreneurship. And I know entrepreneurship is so diverse. But I'll just start maybe by giving you maybe a background. I'm Rinos Mautsa, and I'm the CEO of Pico Construction. We are also owning a couple of other companies that are part of the group. We are in tech, we are in education. We are also getting into hospitality right now. I'm sure we'll be launching this year our resort. And we are also into energy. So those are some of the sectors that we are part of. But I'm mainly focusing these days on construction, and we have other people who are driving the other ventures that we run. But my journey didn't just start to be where I am today. I also have a background. I've worked before. I started my first formal job. I was answering calls as a call center agent. For those who have called maybe at Econet, at Teleso, why I'm giving you the background? Because it's so easy when you see someone who is, people, many times we love to share the highs, but we don't know about the laws. That will become sort of a fallacy because we are just seeing the highs to say, okay, here's the person, they have accomplished 1, 2, 3. But how they got there, the story is so hazy. So the motivation will be having some missing links. So we want to be so practical and to also have things that will then really impact and change someone. So I was a call center agent answering calls during the day, during the night, and during the day I had my business. That's how I started after college. But my entrepreneurship journey, I started at college. I was also running a tuck shop. I was showing some movies when I was at college. Why? Because I was coming from a background that is not so privileged. So I had to do that so that at least I can support. I can also work with my mother who was supporting me. So the resources were very limited. So I had to do that. So I did that at college and I continued with the same spirit. Because I believe entrepreneurship is a spirit. So you might also be working for someone or working somewhere, but you can still be an entrepreneur. And it is a spirit. Why I'm saying, that's why if you are really a true entrepreneur, you can be, people can laugh at you to say, I think this guy is broke, he's done. And 2 years down the line, the same guy we're thinking that is done, you'll be again, you're still soldiering on. Why? Because there is a spirit behind entrepreneurship. There's a spirit behind everything. And entrepreneurship is a spirit. So it is the same spirit that you need to pray for God to also instill in you. Why? Because once you have that spirit, you have that huge belief to say, you know what, I'm not going to fail. So if I look like I'm failing today, I will still keep trying. It's going to work. It's like that bird that is just flying, with the faith for the first time, with the faith that my wings will carry me. Because the bird that is afraid to fly will never fly forever, right? So if we have that entrepreneurship spirit, even if the economy is not making sense, just like farmers, even if the weather forecast is saying this year we are going to have El Nino, the rains are going to be so bad. Usually, what do you see in the rural areas? Those guys, they don't stop. With the first rains, they will still put their crops, right? So we need to learn from those simple issues. So it's the same applies with our businesses. We should have that faith. But faith, it has to be backed by action now. So when I was answering calls, for me, I believed in my story. I told myself to say, you know what? I'm called, to be different. And yes, I can work for someone, which is still good. And I believe if I had worked, I remained in the corporate, I was going to be a CEO in my early 30s of top companies. Why? Because in everything that you are doing, if you do good, I believe you are doing it for yourself. So I answered calls, I got promoted, I became a supervisor, a manager, I changed companies, worked for Tel One, and in management level, worked for Zoa Petroleum. But it happened within a very short period of time, and I was still very young. But I had also my businesses running as well. And when I was working for others, I used to commit. I was always the first one at work. I was so dedicated that many people, they didn't know that I own other companies when I was working. And I never saw companies' time. I was the first one in, and I would leave work at 5 p.m. or even after, and I would go to have my own meetings now with my team. So my team, they knew when I was still working, that we only have our work meetings at 6 p.m. in the evening, and we'll finish around 9 p.m. And they knew that every week we will have 2 meetings, and we'll meet after working hours, because I was working for someone as well. So it is that spirit. If you train yourself, then it's easy when you're running your own things. Why? Because why I'm talking about this, because there are people who will be still working, but they are running their small ventures. Why in Zimbabwe everyone is running something? So then, how then did I become an entrepreneur? I was forced, but I believe everything in life can be taught. No matter who you are, everything can be taught. So not everyone is meant to be an entrepreneur, but everyone can have a side hustle or a side business to sell. But there's this narrative, this notion that we are told that everyone can be an entrepreneur. We need teachers, we need doctors, we need people who can work for others. But at the same time, everything in life can be taught. So you can also learn to be a good entrepreneur. So how do we start now? Because there are many people who will be saying, so where can I start? Because it's all about scale. We don't want you to start a business, then 10 years down the line, we'll see you at the same spot. You need to grow. Surely we have, some will be having kids, siblings. Can you imagine you have your sibling and a 10-year is still behaving like a 1-year-old. You become worried, isn't it? You go and see a doctor. But we have people who are running businesses 10 years down the line, they're still at the same spot, but they're not worried. You get the point? That's why I have a problem. Because can you imagine, you plant some crops, 10, after 1 month, the crops, they are still very small. What do? Sometimes you remove them and you replant. You'll be so worried. But we have people who are so comfortable in the same position. Be it in a career, be it in business, they are not worried. They are not asking themselves, where am I getting it wrong? How can I then improve to become better? So these are the few nuggets I'm going to talk about right now in the interest of time. So how do we start then? We start by writing down your vision, right? Because everything that you do, you start by planning. But for you to plan, you should have a vision to say, where am I going? You need to understand where you are going. Because many people, if you ask them to say, right now, you are a 30-year-old. 10 years down the line, where do you see yourself? By the time you start life at 40, where do you see yourself at? It's so hazy. They don't have a plan about, to just plan to know that where you'll be, maybe 20 years down the line. I know time belongs to God. But we're saying with that time, as long as you are still breathing, you should have your own plan. So that's the beginning. Write down your vision and start planning. So for us, when we're starting there, we plan. As a family, we sit down to say, okay, as a family, let's sit down together. What is it that we want to accomplish this year? We sit together and we also we are accountable to each other. So every month we sit down to say, okay, where are we? You said you are going to do A, B, C, D. Have you done it? You get the point. So when you plan your own things, you are supposed to have an accountability partners. Many people, we don't accomplish the things that we say we are going to do over the year. Why? Because we are not accountable to anyone. So that's the beginning. Can you imagine if I say, let's say I want to complete to read the whole Bible, right? I want to read the whole Bible, the entire Bible. But let's say I've never done it and I want to do that, and we are starting there. For me to be able to do that, I can't just write that I want to read the whole Bible. But I write it down, and I will look for someone who has read the whole Bible, maybe once or 3 times. You get the point? And I'll say, you know what? Or I'll go to a pastor to say, you know what? I know you're a pastor and you read the Bible a lot. You understand the Bible so well. And I want you to mentor me in this area. And that person, because that person is used to read the Bible, he will be pushing you to say, okay, we are now in Genesis. Let's move. Where are we? We are finishing in 2 days. Let's sit down and do some review of Genesis. You get the point? And you'll be moving until you are in Revelation before you know it. Because we are walking the path with someone who have already what? Done it before. So it also applies to your own life. If you want to get into construction, I'm giving you an example. You need to sit down with someone who is already in construction and to say, I know you have done so well in this area, and I want to learn with you. These are my plans. This is where I'm going. In 5 years, I see myself at this stage. You get the point? So the moment you write it down, it will then help you to, that person will help you to walk through that journey, right? And okay, so allow me to honor the men of God. Yeah, thank you. No, thank you so much, men of God. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So I was saying the beginning is for you to write down your vision. And once you have a vision, because if you don't have a vision about your life, it will be so difficult for you to become something, right? And you start planning. And I was talking about writing what? Your plans, your 1-year plan, 5-year plan, 10-year plan. But for you to accomplish your plan, I'm just recapping, right? You need to be having someone who will mentor you in the area that you want to pursue. So having a mentorship is very important. You can't afford to repeat the same mistakes that I made in construction. You can't afford to do that. It's foolishness. That's what I believe. Why I'm saying that? There are people who have been in construction sector. I'm in construction, right? There are many people who have been in construction sector for 20 years, 50 years. So for me, I always go and sit down with those people to say, okay, we've been in construction sector for 10 years. I want to learn from you. How did you manage to be in the sector for 10 years or for 50 years? And those people will tell you the highs and lows of that sector. So as they are sharing their stories about that sector, you also know the things to do and the things not to do, right? That's the beauty about having a mentor. So you can have many mentors. So if you are in construction, you can have a mentor who is mentoring you in financial areas. Because financial literacy is very important as well. So I might be good in business and having a vibrant construction company, but the way I manage my finances is not so good, right? So if you are relying on me on everything, then you also carry on my weaknesses with you. So it's very important for you to have a mentor. Once you have a plan, have a mentor in that area, so you can have multiple mentors in different areas. And association relationships also. What I've learned in business, let's learn from our peers, the Caucasians and other people. Those guys, they are so good at making and establishing relationships. And money is in relationship. That's what I've realized. Money is in relationship. So it's not about creating relationships. Many people are good at creating relationships. We go for seminars, we come to events like these ones, and once we are at those events, what do? We just take numbers and we are gone, that's it. But I've realized that for you to make it in this short life, you need to cultivate relationships. So you create relationships and you need to nurture them. But the challenge is people are just creating relationships and they don't know how to sweat those relationships, to monetize the relationships. Money is in relationships. So I've seen people every morning, people who are really growing, right? Progressing. Because when you set up a business, remember, we said a business has to grow. If you have a small kid and he remains a child, you'll be so worried. You go to the man of God to say, pray for my child, he's not growing. But we are not also worried about our businesses. But those relationships will take your business further. So I used to have a big marketing department at my construction company. But right now, we just have people who are doing social media. We no longer have sales guys, just branding and social media. Why? Because all the jobs we are getting right now, they're through referrals. Right now, all the opportunities, it said that they're tenders or through referrals, right? So, why? Because there are people whom I have met in the previous lives. So those people are the ones who are now referring and recommending clients to us. So you need to have meaningful relationships. When you are seated with your colleagues, people within your circle, there should be people who also help you to go to the next stage, right? So you need a lot of it requires a lot of demonic empowerment if you are to hang out with 5 millionaires if you are not the next one. I'm telling you the truth. So can you imagine if you are to hang out, you have an opportunity to sit with a billionaire just for 5 minutes or to carry his bag and you move around with that person. Do you know it won't take time before you are also a millionaire? I'm telling you. Why? Because you are now tapping into their network as well. That's why I always have a challenge. I'm so happy that we are believers here. I always say to people, there are people who will be saying, maybe I'm not, but let me tell you something, what I've observed. There are people who will be saying, I know this man of God is a prophet and the wife automatically becoming a prophetess. But for me, I think I understand somehow without using the spiritual aspect of things. I understand somehow. Can you imagine, let's say the prophet have married someone from the world who is not even a believer. I'm just giving you an example. And that person, all of a sudden, every week, they are now fasting together for 3 days. I'm just giving you an example. All of a sudden, they are fasting 3 days every week. They are now going to the prayer mountain for prayers. Early morning at 3 a.m. until 6 a.m. they are praying. Can you imagine what will happen to that person? So automatically, before you know it, that person is now moving in a certain realm that will then change. Before you know it, that person is a preacher. Before you know it, that person is transformed. It is now moving in such dimension that you have never understood. So it's the same thing in business. So if you are to come in my circle and network, right? I have my 4 close friends. One day we were seated and we said, you know what, guys? We need to conquer Zambia. We need to get into Zambia. And one of the guy, he was resisting for us to get into Zambia. And we said, you know what, we won't invite you for our meetings until you have registered and started business in Zambia. And after 2 years, he registered in Zambia. Why? Because the power of what? Relationship. So you are supposed to have the right circle and right network and create the right relationships. And once you have created the right relationship, don't be a parasite. But that's the challenge we have in this generation. I was admiring people who are from the older generation. You know, those guys, they pass on opportunities to each other. That's why you see those guys who are in their 50s, 60s, they are sitting in 5 boards. In the golf course, when they are playing golf, they'll just say, hey buddy, how can you do this? Do you know this bank, they want a board member? Send me your CV. And they recommend each other, you get the point? And you are there, seated there with all the qualifications and experience. And you wonder, where are these people, where are the adverts? I've never seen such an advert, you get the point? Why? Because they're just recommending from what? Their peers. And we have the young generation now, when they are seated, they're just talking about the stories about, the social stories, what's happening with this celebrity, and you get the point? There's comrade Chakati saying this, all those kind of stories. It's okay to also have that type of lifestyle, but I'm just saying, also have people who are also talking about progression in your life. Then also scaling your business. So once you have set up, you have the right relationships, you have a mentor who is taking you through your journey, you are also supposed to scale. You can't remain at the same place for a long time. But for you to scale now, once you are getting money, for me when I was starting business, when we were still low, when our revenue was still below 100,000, and the way I was acting then and the way I'm still acting now, is still the same. I was getting a salary. If my finance, I'm sure if it's being live streamed, they know that. They'll be following this. I get a salary. I don't get company money. I have never to use for my personal gain at home. I have a salary. So it's before when I was starting, I was getting a very small amount of salary. And as I started growing now, I increased the amount. But my salary is not like 5 times more than the next person. No, we actually use scales. We actually had a consultant who was helping us, right? So I have a salary for my business. And I'm always the last one to be paid. I know there are other entrepreneurs who believe that pay yourself first. But how would I sleep if the business is still mine, if I pay myself first and someone is going home with nothing? And I'm not just saying because we are in this setup. That's what I believe in. So for me, I believe you put structures and systems that they will help you to anchor, for you to grow. So even if you have a small business with 2 people, you need to put the systems and structures. And if you're talking about systems, people, they think it's the complex things that you need to put. No. You start with the little things where you have a small salary for yourself and you have the processes for yourself. If I'm selling vegetables, I know I have a process. So I take my vegetables from Bari, I come, I add. I'm just being basic right now. I take my vegetable from Bari. This is the process and procedures, and I bring them and I sell. Then after 2 days, if I see that they are about to go bad, I give a discount, but I still make a profit. So so that even if you are not there, if your cousin come, they'll just follow a template that is there, right? So you should have the processes that will then anchor you. And I've seen many people. I know right now we don't trust banking system, but even if you don't trust banking system, you need to deposit your money. I'm telling you the truth. You need to deposit your money. Why? Because you are supposed, remember I spoke about relationships, but it's not about relationships with what? People who give you business. Also relationships with financial institutions, with politicians. You are supposed to have those relationships. I think maybe let me go there maybe a bit. Do you know if you need money, I had some challenges some few years ago, and my house, I lost properties. I lost properties and I was going through a tough time. Because they are what we call crucibles of success. I was going to talk about it at the end. But crucibles of success, when you are pursuing your purpose, one day you come across some challenges that will make you doubt your calling if you're a man of God, or that will make you doubt your calling even if you are in business. To say, am I cut to do this? You ask yourself those questions one day. So that's why you need faith to say, you know what, no matter how big the challenges or the storm are, I'm still going to what? To soldier on. So I went through the same challenge. My apologies. So I faced some challenges some few years ago, and I lost some properties. And I had a huge word bill failing to pay my team members. And some good people who had really sweated for the business, they started leaving. And for me, there was nothing I could do at that point. But the relationships I had cultivated, of course, I was praying about it, and I had some pastors who were praying about it, and my man of God was praying, for me as well. But I'm saying the relationships I had cultivated, because prayer doesn't substitute hard working and principles, right? So that's the challenges we have as believers half the times. We want to substitute hard working and principles, but there are some biblical principles. If you follow them, you will thrive. You don't need a miracle in life. I'm telling you, do you know we give these men of God, they work extra hard and they work overtime to pray for things that are supposed to be done by biblical principles. So if you observe, the lesser the more you observe some biblical principles and some business principles, the lesser you need prayer. The prayers you'll be just needing, say, man of God, I think we need to pray so that at least that deal will sell through so that I can come and build another church. I'm telling you the truth. Those are the conversations you should be having. So, but many times we are substituting now. The equation is not balancing. We are increasing more prayer, which is good, but the hard working and the principles now, we are not observing. So I faced some challenges because I had violated some principles, business principles. And I was told about it, and I said, you know what, I think I know what I'm doing. Because many times as business owners, we also have an attachment with our businesses, and we end up making decisions because we use emotions, right? So when someone who is a professional that you have hired, they will tell you something, you tend to sometimes side swap them, and we follow what we want to what we believe is the right thing. So I ended up owing banks a lot of money. It was a lot of money. I'm talking about big figures. And I ended up losing properties and stuff. Until one day, I'm talking about relationships, right? One day, a very big man in the industry is in the diaspora. Then he said, young man, I faced the same challenges at some point. And I almost lost this business, the business worth over 50 million or 100 million, I think. And what I did, I went back to the drawing board, and I went back to the basics. I started engaging the people I was owing, and I came up with the payment plans. You can't run away from your problems. So that's what he did, and I did exactly that. So remember, mentorship, it was just one word, and it changed everything. I stopped selling my properties. I started facing my challenges head on. And guess what? And my wife was working for an NGO. She resigned and came and joined our business. But that was a game changer. From that day until now, for those who know me, I know Simba, you have been to our company a couple of times. I work with my wife. But from that day until now, we have been on the growth trajectory. You see? So you can recover from anything, but if you follow the right principles. And if you have relationships, I remember one day I was so down and I needed 50,000. And I just, from one phone call, I'm telling you, I've called 2 people and they say, come and collect. 2 people. I just needed 50,000 and I called 2 people and all of them, they say, come and take. And I went to take from one. And after 2 weeks, I went to the other one. I take and to pay the other one. You get the point? So that's how I was navigating through the difficult times. But I'm saying it only happens through relationships. So you can even do it at small level, but everything starts small. I grew up in the rural areas. So I wasn't born with these relationships. I cultivated those relationships. So, and also don't look down upon anyone. If you are still in your 20s, it's an advantage. For those who are still young, 20s, 30s, don't just look at people who have made it in life and learn from people who have made it. You also learn from people who have made it and they failed and lose everything and they don't have anything now. There are a lot of wisdom from people who don't have anything but who used to have money, right? And at the same time, from the young people, your peers who are your age mates, who are still building, you can tell. Do you know with someone who has a vision, who is going far, you can tell. Even if you don't have to be a prophet or a man of God. You can tell that this person will go far. That's why you find that if you get into your 40s, if you're organized in your 20s, and with the right friends, with nothing, but those friends, maybe they were focused. All your friends will be CEOs, directors of this, CEO, top entrepreneurs. In my network, I'm telling you that in my network of friends, almost all the people I used to play with in my 20s, they are CEOs, they are directors, they are HODs of this, and those who have pursued business, their business, some of them, they are worth over millions. Why? Because I was so fortunate to be placed at the right place at the right what? Time and to have the right circle. Because I used to follow these networking groups, the World Economic Forum, Global Shapers. I used to go there. The Toastmasters, used to go there. So you meet people who are also focused, who are serious about changing what? Their lives. Then wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. As an entrepreneur, if you want to be somewhere in life, always strive to have what? Wisdom, knowledge, and what? Seek that and understanding. So in any field, if you want to do well, be it you are a farmer, seek knowledge and understanding in your what? In your field. If you are in construction, sit down. There are some podcasts. This generation, we are so privileged. Why? Because we have some podcasts that are teaching people about anything, right? But there are also bad podcasts. So you have to look for the good ones that are recommended. And every morning, just dedicate maybe, after prayer, you dedicate maybe even 30 minutes every morning, because you are still fresh, just to learn. So when you wake up, I know there are some 5 a.m. club, they went to the gym and stuff. But if you are not a gym person, just dedicate 30 minutes to learn about your field, right? If you do that, before you know it, you become a what? An expert. I am in construction, but I'm not an engineer. But if you give me a bill of quantity right now, I can do a bill of quantity even for this building. And if I give a quantity surveyor who went to school, studying 5 years to become a quantity surveyor, will be almost the same. Why? Because I've empowered myself with what? Knowledge and understanding in my field. So you need to do the same, because you never manage anything in life that you don't understand. You have to appreciate that. You can only manage the things that you understand. So if you want to scale your business, seek knowledge and understanding in your field. Attend conferences such as these ones. Because a lot of people, if you hear that there's a conference, I remember when I was still starting business, I was still a young boy in my early 20s. We used to drive, to take a bus at Roadport to go to South Africa for a conference. And I would stay in Joburg at a place that is costing around $30. A cheap place, and the conference would be in Sentin. And I would take a train to go to Sentin and attend a conference. And no one would know that I'm coming from a place that costs $30. Why? Because there's no harm to struggle when you have a plan. If you know where you are going. So if it means you are staying in a one-roomed house, this is so practical, I'm telling you the truth. If you are starting your journey, if you are starting your business, what also limits us as entrepreneurs, especially Africans, the thing is we want to make it so quick. There's no shortcut to success. If you are a pastor, can you imagine if you are starting a church? You can't just walk up and behave this auditorium. You can't. It's a process. There's sweat, there are tears, there's blood. I'm telling you the truth. So at the same time in business, you can't just walk up and have some millions. It's a journey, it's a process. So you need to go through that process. So there's no struggle there's no harm to struggle when you have a plan. So you have to go through that process, no matter how difficult it is. You need to go to those conferences to learn. When you are there, the conference, you are networking with the people who have already made it. And those people, you'll be also watching how are they conducting themselves. I grew up in the rural areas, but believe me, ask anyone who is closer to me. I know all the finer things to say this is a good thing, this is good stuff. I know. Why? Not because I was born in that type of lifestyle, but it's because I teach myself. You get the point? You teach yourself how to conduct yourself when you are seated with great people. You teach yourself how to behave, how to dress, all those little things. You think they are just petty, but they are also important. But when you are attending such conferences, you are seeing those little things, right? You are observing, you are learning by observation, you are networking, you are giving them your card, you are following them as well. So before you know it, you become like them as well. So you need to start attending those conferences. You will learn a lot about your sector. And opportunities also, they come from such networking, right? Because you are networking with the right people who are also driven by the same agenda, right? At the end of the day, it will definitely help you. So I've spoken already about Crucible's success. I know the time is already giving me a notice, but at the last key point before I leave, there are many things, but in the interest of time, discipline of gratitude. That point, do you know, a lot of people, we are where we are because someone have assisted us. It might, right now, someone maybe, I remember there's one person one day, I always talk about it with my wife, I joked about it when we were starting our journey. I started my journey at college when I had some tuck shop or whatever as a student. Then then when I got married, things were a bit shaky. Things were so bad for us. And My wife was employed, but I wasn't. Things were so shaky. And then that's when I got my job. But before I got that job, I was so desperate with expecting our first child. So what happened now, one day I went to my mzukuru and he just said, Sekuru, here's $20. And my mzukuru was working in a shop there in town. And he just gave me 20. For me, it was a miracle, right? It was a miracle. So why I'm using that basic example, because I was desperate, I needed money. But that $20 was huge. But right now, it's easy for me to forget that. I always use it as an example, but there are many cases like that. It's so easy when you are now at a position of privilege, where you can take maybe 200 kids to school without even feeling it, right? Where you can go and say, you know what, I want to, right now I'm now aiming to build also churches to donate. You get the point? If you are now at that position, someone who gave you $20 years ago, you can forget, right? It's easy to forget. So discipline of gratitude, I'm just saying, be a grateful person. For you to be where you are, even if you are not yet a millionaire or whatever, but where you are right now, someone contributed for your journey to be where you are. So always remember those people. Because when you are grateful in little things, I believe big things will also come. So thank you so much for the opportunity. I hope we'll meet again at the next conference. Stay blessed.
Wow, wow, wow. We have been taken through an entrepreneurship masterclass. Thank you very much, Dr. Rinos Mautsa. Before we sit down, I'd like us to acknowledge our father, Apostle Tavonga Vutabwashe. Thank you. We'd also like to welcome Apostle Chirisa. Thank you for joining us. We may take our seats. We would like to go on to our next presenter, Tatenda Machirori from Zimtrade.
Good morning, everyone. Firstly, I would like to acknowledge Apostle. Thank you so much for inviting us and for having me to be here today. I am greatly humbled and honored to be here and to also just give a presentation that I had prepared. I was given the topic to do positioning for global success. It wasn't easy for me to come up with this presentation, but I did my best. But as go to the next slide, sorry. The previous speaker had a lot to share, and I will make reference to some of the things that you mentioned as I go through my presentation. But this morning, as I was doing my reflection in the morning, a certain verse actually struck out to me. The plans of the diligent lead to profit as surely as haste leads to poverty. So it just goes on into the issues to do with planning. We have to be diligent in our planning. We need to be thorough. We need to plan carefully for whatever it is that we're going to do next. And I think that just ties into the topic that we want to position ourselves for global success. I'm hoping that I won't just be presenting, but we'll also make this a bit of an interactive session. So I'm not so sure how many of us have our businesses that are going on and what we have done in terms of preparing to ensure that they're successful in the local markets before we look at the international space. So we want to just look at how we can position ourselves when we then want to look into exporting. So what is positioning? Positioning, you can look at it from many different angles, which also include the perceptions that you want to create for your clientele, or where you place your product in a certain shelf space or in a certain location. Is it somewhere where it can be seen by your target market, who you want it is to take up your product? So you need to be able to establish the image or the identity of the brand of the product to your consumers, your relevant targeted consumers, so that they can be able to access what it is that you're selling. Sorry. So in line with positioning, you also want to be able to look at your value proposition. What problem are you solving? What solution are you providing for the consumers? So these are the kind of things that you think about or you consider when you're actually setting up your business. Like, who is my target clientele? What problem am I actually solving for these people? What solution am I giving to them? And how am I helping to make things better for them? I think we just want to look at even a typical example of the value that we get from simple products such as the water we drink, the food that we eat, and even the convenience of having a vehicle to get from one place to the next. So there's an image that's on the screen. I don't know, what value would you get from this kind of a product? I don't know, I'm open to anyone, just what value do you get from this product? It is a beverage, yes. It's probably there to quench your thirst. The colors as well, they're also inviting for you to consume the product. And you're also looking at it as baobab. You're also thinking about the nutritional value that you can get from this product. So already that's a solution that you're providing to someone perhaps who's lacking in, let's say, potassium, or just to add some extra nutrition to their well-being, right? So that's what we want to do. We want to be able to create the value or to provide the value when we position our products or our brands in the marketplace. So when customers are buying our products, they are looking at this value and they're looking to fulfill their own desires and needs. So it's not about what you think that you're producing. It's about what they are going to get from what it is that you're producing. So you need to be able to offer a value proposition that is appealing to your target consumers, and also something that is very different from what others are giving. That's how you then be able to stand out from other competitors. So you need to be able to provide the why someone should pick your product over the other product. And so in line with that, why then should we then go global? If your product is already being taken up in this market and is doing very well, that's when you then consider going global. Many companies actually wake up to the benefits of exporting. And it's not something that happens overnight, but then it's something that can happen if your products are a success and they're known and they're well positioned. So before you start, you need to consider a lot of things for the long haul, because it's not just an overnight thing if you want to go global. So it's not also a quick fix for you to boost your sales from what it is that you're making here. You also need to then be able to consider what you're going to do, what preparations you need to make, what plans you need to have in place, and again, systems that need to be in place for you for the long term when you then go global. So some of the benefits of going global include your size. Imagine the size of the market you can then access. It's unlike what you have access to here. Remember, we also have some other competitors, international products that are coming into this market. You also have to consider the size of the market that is out there. Will you be able to fulfill whatever the market requirements are in those markets? If you're able to fulfill what is required in this market, you can then consider going into other different markets. So you now have access to this whole global marketplace just for you to fulfill what is required there. And then you also have diversification. Remember, you can also bring in different products into this market. And you also create that perception that this product is fulfilling a different need or a certain need in a different way. So you have you have access to be able to diversify in that market. So you're offering something that is not part of the ordinary that is offered there. So this can also just compensate, like let's say even if your sales are doing low in this market, or maybe there isn't much growth poised for you in this market, you can also then go to other markets. Look at the previous speaker who spoke about how he's now looking at different markets like Zambia, maybe even your DRC, and Malawi and the likes, it's because he actually has a plan for growth, and he believes he can access those different markets because there is more potential for him to also just grow his business out there. And then it's also a very good learning opportunity to be in very different markets. So you can also learn what you can do and tailor your products accordingly in different markets, and also offer something different even in this local market. You don't just go to the international space and just go and just look, oh, so this is what they're doing here. You also want to then learn whatever it is that they're offering out there, also be able to offer them here, and you offer something that is different. This also leads to improvements even in your own product branding, product quality, and even the way the systems that you do and technology as well. So the most successful exporters are both patient and proactive. They're prepared to foster relationships with overseas buyers and consumers over the long term, and are always actively looking for opportunities and seeking partnerships. So this speaks to the fact that for us to go global, it's a long process. It's not something that we can just set up overnight. It's something that we need to prepare for in advance. And there are certain considerations that we also need to make as a business for us to then be able to realize and to actually optimize on the opportunities and partnerships that exist out there. So what do we do to get started? So I was going to give an introduction of our organization at the end, but I work at Zimtrade. We're the national trade and promotion body of Zimbabwe. I'll explain the pillars at the end, but one of the things that we assist businesses with is to gain market information from different countries. So we do what we call market pointers. Market pointers can be either product focused or market focused. So let's say, for instance, you're in your business of doing maybe protective clothing, or you're a farmer, you're doing blueberries, you're doing pineapples. We can provide you with market pointers or which detailed information in terms of what are the requirements in a certain market. We have access to a trade tool that we call Trade Map that provides all this information in terms of which markets are the biggest importers of this product, where you can then be able to supply your product to this market. But of course, there are other things, other requirements that you need to meet to be able to supply into these markets. But in terms of the product briefs, that's one of them. But market briefs, we can also provide, like, let's say, for instance, for Zambia, it's usually just like a desktop research, but some of the markets we've also done market surveys, like the likes of your Zambia, Malawi, Mozambique, whereby we provide you with the basic information, the population, what are the products that are in highest demand, what products are imported from there, and what the general requirements would be. So that's a good starting place, whereby you can get market pointers for whichever products you're doing and where you can then send them to. And then you can also need to develop your export plan, which will cover the steps that you need to take. You need to outline your objectives as well as the resources that you need to meet your targets. So I'm sure us, even as our businesses now at the moment, we do have our business plans that we're utilizing on a day-to-day for our operations. And as we are going, we're actually tuning these according to how the environment is changing as well, the economy, and we're ensuring that we are remaining on plan to make sure that our businesses remain viable. So you would also need to then conduct a market research. I'm sure even when we set up a location for our products, or when we open our shops, we first conduct a market survey in terms of you want to identify if this is the best place for you to set up. I can't imagine if you then decide maybe to set up like a retail outlet somewhere maybe in the middle of the road. That will not make practical sense, because you know that many people will not be able to access it. So you need to consider some of these things in terms of the population, the products you're going to put even in your retail shop. Who will come and buy them? Will the people that are living around in the area, will they come and take up these products? So you need to establish your target market, and you need to understand what it is that they want and how you need to fulfill those requirements. I think we've noticed that even if you, it's just an example, if you shop in Bon Marché or Pick n Pay at the Bordeaux Brook, and then you shop at maybe Bon Marché, Pick n Pay at like Avondale shops or even Marimba Park, you can tell that the products are also different. It's because also the retailers understand that certain products appeal to certain consumers and certain markets. So you also have to do that market segmentation and market differentiation. So this is some of the information you gain when you do your market research. So you also need to understand your route to market. How is it that you're going to sell your product to the market? Are you just going to distribute it yourself? Are you going to go into retail outlets? Are you going to get a local representation if you're going global? It's easier for you to get local representation as this is someone who's already used to the market. So they can be able to then drive the sales for you until such a time that you can probably set yourself up in that market. You need to just have your realistic idea of what it is that you want to achieve. Remember, your objectives always need to be smart. So you also need to do your product research. Depending on the product that it is that you're doing at the moment, you have to know what the labeling requirements are, or what are the packaging materials that are required, what are the packaging designs, and ensure that you meet the specific country requirements, including the cultural requirements. Just an example is just like halal. You find halal products mainly, here in Harare, mainly in the Belvedere, Marimba area, because they know that's where the highest consumers are. So you have to think about all those things. And even the labeling, you have to consider even the language. If you're going to marketplaces such as your Mozambique, you need to know that your labeling needs to be in Portuguese. If you're going to the East African market, your packaging needs to be in French. Other things even to do with your packaging, there are certain countries that now do not allow for plastic products, so they'll want your glass or your paper because it's biodegradable and it's easier to recycle. So those are the considerations you need to make. So is your information enough even in your product, the cultural factors, the language issues, and even your standards? Certification is very important. You need to make sure that you know what it is in terms of certification for your products. So an example is just even for horticultural produce. You cannot send products to the Netherlands or to the UK without your Global Gap certification. Without Global Gap certification, most of those international markets, they will not accept your products. Global Gap certification basically says that you're producing according to standard. And standard means that you actually have parameters that you're following when you're doing your production. So you're not just producing just for the sake of producing. And remember, these markets also dictate what it is that they want. They will tell you what size of product they want, what color of product they want, which product variety that they want. So if you're not then in tune with that, they will not accept your product. You also need to have simple things such as your sell by, use by, best before, which differ depending on the market, because different markets will tell you, no, we want to know what is the latest date that we can sell this product, because that they know that that's what the consumer's about, that they're looking on the shelf space, when is the best before date, or when do I need to consume this product by. So another example is just your Coca-Cola. I know a lot of us walk into a retail outlet and they say they want a Coca-Cola. I think that tells a lot about how it has positioned itself as a brand and also as a product. But look how it's also adapted to the different markets. Is this something that we'll also need to do for our products as well? You find that in some markets, Coca-Cola is actually sugar-free, or it has no sugar at all, but it's also just adopted even in terms of the label, the name. I'm not so sure if, I'm sure that it might actually read Coca-Cola in India or in Japan and Korea, but you can tell that it's no longer your Coca-Cola that you know, because you know it written Coca-Cola. But these are some of the considerations, that if you have your product that's written, maybe it's written brand here, what are you going to write out there? What is going to be acceptable to the consumers out there? So you also need to just ensure that your product is actually making it in the local market. Now I'm afraid to ask questions. I just wanted to have a short, just interactive discussion about what we deem as success. Because I know we all have different ways of thinking about success. But I mean, is your product making it? Is it well recognized in this current market? Are you success for some people could be that it's a top of mind product, like your Colgates, you know, even though you're thinking of your Aquafresh, or Cerevita, even though you just want like ordinary cornflakes or some other porridge. Or even the sales value that you're getting per month. For some, that is success. So you just have to ensure that by the time you're thinking of going to the global market space, you're also kind of successful in this market by your own parameters as well. So you need to be doing well. Because that will be a springboard for you. Because remember also, when you then decide to enter the international marketplace, they will look up your history. They'll look up whether this product is even known in Zimbabwe. And it's a good place to start where your product is recognized and you've created a good brand equity, a good brand for yourself to then be able to carry you into different markets. So you also need to then consider things such as even your pricing. How are you going to price your product in the different markets? So it's not easy for you to set up a price because there are other considerations even in terms of how you're going to export your product into these different markets. If you're going to send by ship, or you're going to send by air or by road, because there are different pricing requirements there. So you can set your prices in different ways, whether it's going to be X Works, which is directly from your factory, that maybe a distributor will come and collect directly from you, the landed price, which will then include your production price, and then also the cost of shipment, a price that includes also your local import charges and taxes, wholesaler margins, retail price, and maybe even your VAT is also included in sending your products. So in terms of pricing, there are certain markets that we also have trade agreements with that you can actually access them duty-free. So there's the COMESA, SADC certificates. We also have bilateral agreements with different countries like Malawi and Mozambique, whereby you can access duty-free quotas for you to then penetrate your products into those markets. So that's something that you'd also then consider when pricing your product. Because, I mean, if you don't have to pay duty, then there's no need for you to set such a high price, and you can enter at a more competitive price. So the other terms you then also need to understand, like your Incoterms, your export documents. You need to make sure that they are in order. You put them in black and white, your product description, your price and delivery terms, and just make sure that everything is in order. Your permits and your certificate of origin, like I earlier mentioned, the COMESA and SADC certificates. So your route to market. Your route to market is also important. If you're going to then send your product to neighboring countries, you can consider things such as your road transport or even flights, depending on the cost. And also depends on the type of product it is. Because if you notice products such as your medicines, which are highly sensitive, you probably have to put them on a plane. So how will your product enter the market? How and where will it be sold? Are you going to just use importers or distributors or agents? You need to research how best it is to penetrate your product. I think maybe just even just give a typical example of like how products such as your Avon, your Tupperware, how they're being distributed in this market. You know, they're through distributors that are moving those products. That is just an example. But they found that it's better for them to distribute them according to that route to market than to utilize having to set up an extra shop in those different markets. So again, local representation. A local representative is good for you, as they will have more information about the market for you. They'll know which avenues they'll be able to distribute your product to drive the sales that you need. So you need to specify things such as which territory that your partner should cover in terms of distribution. And then you need to ensure things such as the sales after support. Who will provide that? Will you go there yourself and just do a verification in terms of the product that has been supplied? Is it meeting the requirements that are needed? Is it satisfying the consumers accordingly? So you need to also just understand your obligations and those of your partner before, if you think about the local representation, and you need to conduct your due diligence accordingly, because there's nothing as important as then finding out that you won't be able to get payment from that market once you supplied products. So some of these sensitive markets will include the likes of like, just an example again, DRC. DRC is an environment which is very, if you supply that market, you need to make sure that you just, as soon as you supply, you also get your payment. We've heard from previous people who have supplied there that they haven't been able to get their payments after a certain period of time. So you just need to know, depending on that market, what the risk is associated in that market. So even when you look at things like promoting your product outside of this market, you'd want to look at your website, your social media marketing. How far is your reach going? Do people actually know your products in these different markets? Some people would want to ride on your diaspora community to also be able to distribute your product and to also sell on your behalf. We also facilitate for trade fair participation. If there are ever any markets that you're interested in entering, we facilitate for you to at least be able to go and meet with potential buyers of your products and generate some trade leads. You can also conduct market visits, but also make sure that when you conduct market visits that you are putting your best foot forward. So you need to make sure you go with your product or your service that is very well packaged, especially for that market. And also participate in trade missions. This will assist you to be able to get more trade information in the different markets, and also listing your businesses in foreign trade directories. So again, the legal considerations, you need to make sure that you've protected your intellectual property. Make sure that you have the right contractual paperwork in place before you enter the different markets. You need to ensure your product complies with the legal requirements of your export destination. So seek legal advice for your agreements. So you need to make sure that before you enter any deals, you've done the due diligence. You can engage lawyers for this. Again, if you want to enter export markets, we're here to assist you. If you want us to assist in terms of some of this due diligence work. It is easy to get up in the excitement of the possibility of exporting, but it's critical to take a step back and assess your readiness. So I had a short questionnaire after that, which is just to question you and to see how you feel about where you are when it comes to your export readiness, because I'm sure we're all very excited to want to be able to sell our businesses across the borders. So an export plan is essential. I think that is a very good starting point. I know we all have our business plans, we have our marketing plans, but we need an export plan. Your export plan will detail which markets you've selected, which products you're going to sell, what prices you want to penetrate. So again, going back to the issue of planning. Having no plan is like leaping off a cliff and trying to knit yourself a parachute on your way down. So imagine how quickly you will fall from where you think you've gotten, but then you have no plan. You get to a place and yet you don't know what it is that you're doing at that place. So the export plan, again, is just to detail all this information. You need to make sure that you put this information down so that you can follow it accordingly. Okay. You can go to the next slide. Okay. So your export strategy also goes in line with your budget. These two are coupled together. Your company must have the budget for export, your export plan, and clear, realistic export objectives. So remember, this is for the long haul. So we always have issues whereby a producer here, they've produced a very good product, but then they want to send to the export market, then they find a buyer, and then they send the product to this buyer. And the buyer likes it, you know. And then next thing, the buyer is inquiring, when can I get my next load? They have nothing. So I want to avoid such situations. Because remember, again, going global is for the long haul. You need to make sure that you have the capacity to produce the product that is required. So again, it's an issue of, are you already supplying this market sufficiently that whatever is in excess can go into the other markets? Do you have the sufficient production capacity? So then you might need to then set up increased or extend your production facilities to be able to accommodate what you're going to do into the international market space. So you need to have the ability to expand the capacity, and you need to be able to respond to the opportunities when they come up. So you need to have that plan in place, which is not really reactive, but proactive, to ensure that if someone says, if you're willing to supply 20,000 today, if someone then says, no, I need 50,000, you're able to then up your production and still supply that 50,000. But please do not overpromise and undersupply. You need to underpromise and then deliver according to what is required. So you also need to be committed. The entire company needs to know the vision of the business, where it is that you want to go, where you're driving towards. It must be aware of, for your export, it needs to drive you to the success that you want to get to. Everyone needs to be committed, from the management to the lower level staff. So you can't take that for granted that because we're at the top, everyone should know. It's something that you need to then communicate to the entire organizations. I think we don't, or we shouldn't take for granted the strategy planning sessions that happen. They shouldn't just happen like at top management. They should happen throughout the organization so that everyone is committed to the success of the business, whether it's within the business, within the local market, or in the international market space. So financial resources that will need to be committed. You need financial resources and probably also additional human resources if you're going to increase your capacity production. So you need to make sure that those are secured, they're in place. So if it's an issue of you then having to take out loans or export credit, those are the things you need to be able to consider and make sure that you have in place before you go global. So this is the quiz for export readiness. So I can just ask the questions and then you can just say yes or no on your writing pads. So has your market research been done? Do you have financing for product modification and promotion? Is management committed to be in exporting business for the long haul? Does your firm have a track record of meeting deadlines? Does management have international business experience? Does the product possess a distinct competitive advantage over competition? Has the product been adapted for the export market, e.g. labeling, language, packaging, cultural issues? Do you have structures to provide after-sales support? Have you set prices for the target market? Do you have surplus production capacity to meet increased demand? Do you have a local agent or representative? Have you verified acceptability of and availability of your trade names? Is your promotional material adapted for the market? Do you have services of a freight forwarder? Have you started marketing your product in the foreign market? So I think just going through those questions, you know the number of yeses you got or the number of no's that you got. So you would know whether you're actually ready to go global as yet. So just in summary, it's essential that you start with the market, that you know what it is your market want, what their requirements are, what colors you're using. You know, some cultures in some markets are very sensitive to small things such as even the color, or even the labeling that you have on your products. So you need to then consider those things. You need to make sure you have the infrastructure set up in place, your systems, your procedures that will support you to be able to grow your business and to even increase your capacity. You need to comply to the standards of that different market as well. And also your logistics route to market, you need to set that up. You also need to partner. It's essential to partner. in different places. We shouldn't have to go blind into new markets. You should at least have a reference point, someone you can ask about certain things, or even you go in yourself and then you ask the relevant questions, you do the necessary groundwork, you move around, and you see the place, what it's like. And you also just need the technical skills to be able to support you going global. I also just want to give an example. We had a situation at one point whereby, we facilitate for trade fair participation. Some of the things that you need to consider before you actually attend certain platforms are things such as your pricing. We had a situation whereby one of the clients were with wanted to start setting a price because they were in this market. So the other consideration in terms of your logistics, they did not have those costs, what they would take. Right? But then they were just looking at the market and they were thinking, this is a very affluent market. I'm sure they will receive my product very well. So before you actually attend some of these events, you need to have all this information at hand. Because there's no way you're going to be able to have any business conversations when you don't know the price, at least a tentative X works price or something. But you cannot start working out your prices just because you have crossed an ocean and you're in a very affluent market. Thank you. And then a bit about my organization. I work for an organization called Zimtrade. We are the national trade and promotion body of Zimbabwe. We're established in 1992. We are mainly focused on 4 main pillars: market information, market development, market promotion, and advocacy and lobbying. So when it comes to market intelligence, we do conduct market surveys regionally, internationally, and also here in Zimbabwe, we've done the same. We've done scoping exercises to identify what opportunities lie in which provinces or in which markets. And this is information that we then disseminate to the business community so that they know what opportunities are available where. We've done market development activities that include development initiatives, such as our marketing and branding for international competitiveness. It's basically a training package for entrepreneurs, which includes learning how to do marketing well, how to do financial management, your social media marketing, and we also conduct technical interventions, which are more on-the-ground assessments of your businesses, and we can help you iron out any issues that might be presenting a bit of a lag in terms of your business growth. Then market promotion is when we then facilitate for different trade fair participation, which includes the like of your Fruit Logistica in Germany, Ambiente, your Zambia Agricultural Commercial Show in Zambia, Malawi Trade Missions, Mozambique, South Africa. We've basically done some of these trade fairs everywhere around the world, including Qatar as well. Then advocacy and lobbying, it has to do with your businesses if they're facing any impediments, especially when it comes to exporting, something that we can lobby on your behalf to the government. We're there to assist. Our information is available. We do have 3 offices, one in Mutare, one in Bulawayo, and the one in Harare. We also have this trade platform that you're able to access if you want to go digital and going global as well. Buyers from different markets can then be able to look up your business on this platform. You can just get in touch with us and we can register your business and your products and services as well on this platform, and other buyers will be able to access this information from different markets, and they will contact you and also just engage with you directly. We're also available on X, Twitter at Zimtrade Alerts. So if you have any information you'd require, I am available to assist. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Tatenda, for a very informative presentation. I know that a lot of times things seem impossible because we don't have information. So I'm hoping that after this, we're going to go back to our drawing boards and start thinking globally because we've been given the information. Our next presenter is an HR strategist, and And I would like to introduce Roseline Nhamo.
A very good morning, everyone. Good morning. Okay. Thank you. My name is Rose Nhamo. I run an HR consulting business called Distinctive Consultancy Services. We are based in Zimbabwe, Zambia, South Africa, and Rwanda. It is a pleasure for me to talk to you about retention strategies. How do you attract and retain top talent? Very interesting topic indeed. Thank you very much for giving that to me. Someone needs to tell me to stop talking because I could go on and on about this topic the whole day. I always start with a disclaimer. When I'm excited, I use both English and Shona. The whole idea is to engage and for you to appreciate some of the things that we deal with when we're dealing with people in the workplace. So I thought maybe the best place to start is, what is top talent? Because we confuse just talent and top talent. And I like the fact that you said top talent on my topic. So top talent, what we're talking about, is an individual who consistently excels in their role, brings exceptional value to an organization. These high performers also possess qualities such as initiative, self-motivation, problem solving, a strong ability to collaborate. They also go beyond expectations and take ownership of their work and contribute innovative ideas that drive success. So what a powerful description. Now, people just say talent and it's just mixed all over the place. But I'm talking top talent today, and I wanted to define it first. But there's some common myths that are there around top talent. So people think, I'm telling you what top talent is not. I think let me start there. So people think that a highly skilled individual who lacks collaboration, adaptability, or leadership is top talent. So in Zimbabwe, I think mainly we look at the skill. So they are an engineer, they've got 3 years experience and so on. And we think that's top talent. That's not how we define top talent. We define it differently the way I've defined it in the beginning. Years of experience as well does not make someone top talent. Some professionals with fewer years of experience are top talent. And they are able to demonstrate innovation and all the other qualities that I talked about earlier on. Someone who is brilliant but toxic to the workplace may not truly be top talent. I've got an interesting story of a friend of mine who had their own business in the printing and packaging business. There was this gentleman who was very good at printing, and they had old machinery. He knew exactly what to do when there was a breakdown, etc. But angasingade kushanda nevamwe. Aitotaura kutoti if you, and my friend would say it can 30,000 labels by a client, this person would say, ndokwanisa kuzviwinzira musi Friday, by Saturday, end of day, but I don't want to work with anyone. And not only did that person not want to work with anyone, I put a bit on Friday so that they could last the weekend. And guess what would happen? He would do the work. My friend said on Saturday, you find the 30,000 done, finished, packaged, ready for delivery. But at the end of the day, this was a, and Saturday, I'm not coming. And then other employees would then be saying, but we are and the like. So that person is really not a good example. You are getting your things done, but how are you getting your things done? And someone may be considered top talent today. I think this is an area that we lack as organizations, but they lose that status if they stop learning and adapting, isn't it? So I bring you in today, you are top talent. If you come into my business and then you're not improving, you're not changing, at some point you stop being top talent because the top talent is actually being brewed elsewhere. So as business leaders, we need to look at that as well. So what are some of the reasons that make organizations not to attract top talent? First and foremost, poor leadership management. So where there's ineffective leadership, it can deter potential hires. I'm in the recruitment space. Sometimes if I advertise a position and it's a certain industry, people will actually say to me, Rose, if it's XX company, please don't send my CV there. So already you stop actually, attracting top talent. Organizations as well, I'll give you an example of Yahoo. They were not attracting top talent around about 2010 and thereabouts because there were frequent leadership changes and unclear strategic directions. So in the day of social media, what's happening in our organizations, people are seeing or are hearing, and your employees are posting about that. So someone will say, I don't want to go and work for that organization. So we then stop attracting talent. Uber in the early years also was not attracting talent because there were reports of toxic management practices and ethical issues. So the generations that we are recruiting now are looking at those things more than our generation. So just to give you an example, I've put in there, if you want to attract top talent, what prospective generations actually are looking for in employers. So you are sitting there and you're Rose, you've got your business, and you say, I want to attract top talent. You have to think about all these things. What generational mix am I going to have? What are they looking for? So what it means is that you have to do something about your organization so that that generation, apparently someone has said that there are probably 4 generations in the workplace at any given time. So now if you're attracting top talent, you're looking at all those things and you say, what do they need? Remember, my topic is about not only attracting those people, but retaining them. So it's quite critical that you look at that. I'm not going to go through the whole table because these notes will be distributed to you, but I'll just pick 1 or 2 that I'll just focus on. So when you're looking at the Gen Z, when it comes to work-life balance, they prioritize flexibility, they prefer remote work, and mental health support. This generation is mentally fragile. I'm a 2000. I happen to have a daughter who was born in 2000. Let me tell you, the conversations we have are out of this world. Remember, I am an HR professional and I'll be talking to you about careers and everything. And one of the things that you then realize is that this generation is a fragile generation. They need a lot of affirmation in the workplace. And yet isusu tiri pamabasa tiringotaura kuti umana tiri kumhanya nebasa tiri kumita madeadline zvema-feelings izvo tozozviona kupi kana maenda kumba, that sort of thing. So it becomes a very interesting discussion that you'll be having. You will find the generation, which is Generation X on the other side, they value work-life balance but are accustomed to traditional office settings. So we don't mind going to the office. Just to fill out and things like that. So in our own businesses, big or small, tine hybrid work practices here, so that we attract the different generations that we are looking at. When it comes to compensation and benefits, the Gen Z will look for competitive salaries, wellness programs and perks. And then when you look at the millennials, they're seeking financial stability along with meaningful work. So when you talk about financial stability for that generation, if you look at the years 1981 to about 1996, the financial benefits are more to do with young children. Am I able to put my children in a good school? Am I able to do X? So when they're looking for employers, they're looking for all those things to see if they can then come and work for you. And then the Gen X, you can see there we are focusing on retirement plans, healthcare, and financial security. This is a generation whose pensions have been eroded by inflation, and the pensions no longer exist. So you find a lot of people right now will be working for their pension if they are at that age. So if you don't have a good pension policy, maybe you may not be able to attract. So the rest, like I said, you'll be able to read on your own. Please allow me, because this is a business forum, to talk about family-owned businesses. Because you will find that attracting and retaining talent in family-owned businesses may be a problem at the end of the day. And I can resonate with some of the things that I'm talking about. So you may not be able to attract top talent. Why? Because the professionals actually want clear career progression, but family businesses, sometimes they prioritize family members for leadership positions or leadership roles. So Rose has got her own consultancy businesses. I've got my 2 daughters. They are the next in line in the succession plan. Whereas you've brought in this top talent who is also ambitious, who wants to grow. So where are they going to grow? And sadly, what is happening with family businesses, and correct me if I'm wrong, our children, the ones who've got this type of businesses, we've afforded our children an opportunity to go and study abroad. Some of them are not coming back. So people look at this family-owned business and the succession is already broken. And so let me talk about myself as a very good example of this whole succession planning. So you start a consulting business, like I said, which is in the different countries. And I'm like, oh, I think one of my daughters is going to take over on the business. One decided when she went to university in Canada, she was not coming back. So she's a tax lady. So she's doing tax consultancy, and that's where she's seeing a career going. The younger one decided she's a chef, so she's cooking. So where am I? Yeah, I'm sitting with this business where I'm hoping, or I was wishing I could get succession planning, and it's not going to happen. So when I bring in top talent into this business now, I have to then take them as part and parcel of my succession planning. And it is a very difficult process because business, they need to take it over and so on. We may even go into a manufacturing business even, where I've got a friend who thought his son was going to come back and work in the business and be the person who is a successor. She said he came back with a girlfriend, a white one, and one of Maneru, Dad, we want to talk to you. And he says, Chagandi Boa is the girlfriend who was talking. And he said, I had a house that I had in Blufffield, which I was going to give to my son. Business. The girlfriend said, Dad, Tongoti John and myself have decided that we want to travel the world. So we have come to sell the house so that we can travel the world and go and enjoy ourselves and see a bit about life. So when it comes to my small businesses, sometimes you will find this can be, imagine with our culture. So the guy was like, that's not right, you know. But this is what's happening in our family-owned businesses. So what is our plan? Our plan should be to attract top talent. Our plan is to make sure that these businesses live beyond us, beyond our legacies and so forth. So that's another area that we've got a problem. In terms of compensation and benefits as well, we struggle to match the salaries and perks that some of the bigger organizations are having. My consultancy business, I'm always losing my staff to my clients. I polish someone, I've been working with them for 2-3 years, then we go and I say, okay, go in front of the client, you do what you need to do. The client is impressed. The next thing I'm getting a resignation and the person is now working for the client. Yeah? So it also is a problem. I've gotten my talent. It may not have been top talent, but I've polished it to top talent. So what am I saying? I am saying top talent is attractive everywhere. So let's also be very careful that we attract the talent, and I'm going to talk about the retention bit now at the end to say how do we retain those people. And the culture dynamics in the workplace of family businesses, my God, yeah? Balancing family relationships with the professional management is a very difficult one. In my HR life, I've had to work with situations where the relatives have taken each other to the labor court or to the Ministry of Labor because of payment of benefits and the like. These are emotional terms. ndichikuunza kuti ushande kubasa kwangu wakundiendesa ku-Ministry of Labour and things like that. So those are challenges now, because maybe if that person is, the one I'm talking about may not have been top talent, but if it's your relative and they were top talent, you are supposed to pay them properly and get them to remain as top talent within your business. And the other thing is resistance to change, which becomes a problem. So what are some of the effective, and I'm going to rush through this, attraction strategies for top talent? What do you need to do? First and foremost, organizations need to showcase your achievements. Highlight company achievements and milestones, and this reinforces the organizational credibility and attractiveness also. Because a lot of people are going on to social media to check you out before they come for an interview. So they go there, they find a page, update in 2022. If you are looking at that other generation, you will not attract the top talent as a result. My employee testimonials may help, where people are actually talking about how great it is to work for your organization. That's another strategy that you can use. Using social media for wider reach is also important. And also engaging potential candidates. My networking opportunities are bana. Yes, pane my business people, but pane my top talent, ruda kumuva izvozvi. Pamwe tutaona kana 1 or 2 or 3 varipo. We should be able to network and you make use of these very good occasions that we have. And then, so I've already talked about networking. Now let me very quickly go to retention. So you have brought in this person who I have described at the beginning. What do you do? And I just want to talk about some lessons that have been learned on retention. So if you want to retain an employee or top talent, if work is not a source of pride, the employee will never be motivated to stay with you. So you want to give that person, the top talent, an experience of success. You need to give them a responsibility. You need to recognize them. So good leadership is about realizing that one of the most effective ways of motivating subordinates is to give them an experience of success. And once they taste success, they will want to taste it again. So let me go and show you further how this can be done. And I'll give you examples. I think that makes more sense. So there was a young manager who was put in charge of a factory where he had worked for a year and managed to gain the respect and confidence of the team. A problem cropped up and he called his staff for a meeting to discuss the possible solution. His boss asked to attend the meeting. Ndoba kutotangira ma problem yese ma 1 year say wow. You have brought in talent, they are leading a team. Akuda kuita meeting ine vanhu vake voti ndoda kuuyawo meeting macho. Let's see what the boss did. It was not long before the boss took over the meeting and warned the workers that management would not hesitate to get tough if they did not toe the line. Besides, who was doing the work whilst they were sitting around talking? So the boss now violated the responsibility of the manager. So you frustrate your top talent. The next time, this person is not going to be top-notch in terms of their performance, isn't it? Another one, give responsibility. With smaller businesses, including the family businesses that I'm talking about, sometimes you need to give a bit of ownership, if you can. So you are 100% owner of this business, and you even give 2%, 5% to your employees. This is what happened on a small construction company, where builders were given responsibility such that they took ownership of part of the business. And they started feeling it is now part of our business, this is our building. And before they took ownership, this is what they were doing. If materials were not delivered, they would sleep at the site the whole day. And then after they took ownership, when a shipment of materials was delayed, they would advise the manager that, how can I do my job if you're not doing yours? So now they are now being held accountable, isn't it? And it's very important. Let's talk about some other lessons again. The next one, issues to do with simple things when you've got top talent is to give them praise. That's the next one. So some leaders think that giving praise is unnecessary. In fact, they believe it's dangerous. Some believe that they pay people to do good work, so if he does not need to tell them when they do good work. He will talk to them if they mess up. So some managers warned that the danger of telling employees that they're doing good work is that the next thing they'll be asking for a salary increase. But at the same time, it's a good way of actually making sure that we retain staff, isn't it? Some other lessons in retention as well, issues to do with recognition. Paid attention to this statistic that I'm just about to give you. This was a survey that was done in South Africa. It shows that 20% of employees get feedback on regular basis. So those 20% are the 10% bright stars and the 10% who are disasters in the workplace. But then they realize that there's an 80%, which is your, I would want to call them average employees. They neither get any feedback because they are not doing great things, they are not doing bad things. So as a result, what happens? They feel ignored. So let's see on the next slide what happens if an employee is ignored. So sometimes nothing happens, but employees may become troublemakers. Even the Bible, in Proverbs 27 verse 5, it says it's better to be scolded than to be ignored, isn't it? So even in our workplaces as well, just not talking to the 80% of our employees who are average performers doesn't give us a good result. So one rebellious teenager was asked why he caused problems. He said, I was not good in class or in the sports field, but I bet those teachers will always remember me. Being rebellious was his way of becoming somebody. Similarly in the workplace, people may actually act up or do things that are rebellious and be in the 10% if you're not careful and if you have brought in that top talent. Let's talk about the top 5 retention strategies, because I've already spoken about the attraction strategies, but what about the retention strategies? The first one is career development and growth. So if you bring in top talent into the organization, they expect to see some upward movement during the tenure within your organizations. And it has been said that companies that invest in employee development see 34% increase in retention rates. So you actually retain people if they feel they're growing. And then workplace culture and engagement. Organizations with strong work culture experience 25% lower turnover. So someone once said to me, they went into an organization and before 3 months, before the probation period. And when I asked why, I'm just used to a more professional and robust systems. Competitive compensation, this will always be a difficult one. How much is enough when it comes to compensating your employees? It's important for you to just continue checking with the market within your industry. But it doesn't mean that compensation actually becomes the biggest one. And like I said, this is the top 5. Compensation is on number 3. So people actually think, how can I retain top talent? Look at what they are looking for first. Career was the first one. The culture was another. And then the compensation is coming in at number 3. And number 4, flexible work arrangements. And number 5, recognition and rewards. This is your recognition when you are looking at probably a performance bonus, when you are looking at even recognizing long service and other loyalty issues that you are looking at. What are some of the push factors now? This is what stops you from retaining your top talent. On the next slide, we're talking about the push factors. Lack of job fulfillment. Employees who do not find their work meaningful are likely to resign. So how do you make work more meaningful? This is where you actually sit down and have a career conversation with your employee, and you understand what their objectives are. You look at your business objectives. Normally when those two are meeting, it's a very sweet spot for retention, because the person will be actually feeling purpose, the purpose of the organization and what it's trying to achieve and what I'm trying to achieve, they are linked. Then it becomes a great issue. The other push factors is poor leadership. If employees feel unheard and undervalued by their managers or leaders, they are also likely to leave. And I call them PPCs myself. Organizations should continue to be having what we call powerful and painful conversations. And these powerful and painful conversations, really, you are looking at people and you are saying, what are we doing right or what are we doing wrong? And you're talking to your top talent about it. I've already talked about providing opportunities for growth and development. So that's another area which I've said that it becomes a push factor if someone sees themselves just being static and they don't have a career pathway at the end of the day. Another way of retaining staff is issues around work-life balance. I know it's very difficult. My companies are struggling and we have to work long hours. We have to put in the extra time. We have to come in on Saturdays sometimes to work, and Sundays and so forth and so forth. But if we do not then have some kind of flexibility, that then allows someone who has been waking up to 11 o'clock in the evening, maybe it's a manager, to then say tomorrow come at 11 in the morning. You know, we are not really being flexible. And it may drive away top talent. During COVID, we went into remote working. But as Zimbabweans, I think if I'm to do in percentage terms, those that have remained on the remote, I don't know, probably 5-10%. The rest, we've gone back to the old way of doing things. But in some countries, you will find that they found that very organizations actually found themselves saving a lot of money from not having employees coming in, transport allowances, the food at the canteen, and other things. People continue to work from home. But the trust factor becomes the critical component. Because if I'm going to trust you to work at home and give me the results, and I want results, leadership, a lot, they want presentism. Otherwise, you're not working. But that's not the point. Sometimes I'll be busy in digital social media, putting something on TikTok and doing all sorts of things. I think a colleague of mine, Memorangui, did a research during COVID and said the people who were most depressed during COVID, Vachandra Kumba, were the supervisors. They were missing bossing people around at work. And they tried to boss the wives at home, and the wives were not having it. So at the end of the day, there was a bit of depression, Dr. Chirisa, from supervisors who wanted to. So those type of people will not even want to have any remote working options. But imagine what it will do to a mother who has come back from maternity leave, who is working, and the baby is sitting right there. Anokupai productivity, because we have given that to say, okay, paunoenda pa breastfeeding, kind of lunch, work from home, but this is what I want in terms of my results. But atina flexibility yoyo, labor act rose 1 hour or 2 30-minute break. And we're not, so the retention of talent is actually something else that we need to look at. What about leadership, mentorship programs? Any top talent actually needs to be mentored. Remember what I told you, you can come in with top talent today, and then if there's no mentorship and growth, within a period of 4 or 5 years, if not less, you are no longer top talent because you are not fulfilling that role that you had. Remember, part of it was innovation when we're looking at top talent. So we need to develop a strong leadership, mentorship programs, and these will lead to loyalty. Can I briefly look at the negative side of talent retention? Because people always look at talent retention as positive. And we're talking of top talent. So burnout or overwork, this I have observed myself, and it has happened to me in my lifetime as an employee. Tikaona mshanda ari kuziva zvaari kuita anogona, toramba tichimupa more work. Ngoramba uchingoti Rose ndiye anozigona zvemagraphs, Rose ndiye anogona zvakati. And then this person akutopanishwa manje for being a top performer. And then they suffer for burnout. So high performing employees may feel pressure to stay, leading to burnout and decreased productivity. Because we are now making them more inefficient as a result. And also the costs of retaining employees. So excessive spending on retention incentives can strain company resources without guaranteeing long-term benefits. I think it's very important. And guys, we are being played like a guitar by some of this top talent. Anongomka mungana ungoenda ku interview asiri kuda kubva pabasa pako unosvika utouya akatobata tsamba ikuratidza kuti apiwa basa akuiusa now to negotiate this is top talent, we want to retain it. And then what do? Motopai salary increase as a retention. Opedza ipapa angogara 6 months vatoripo vanhu vakadaro. We call it horse trading. Rakungomhanya achienda umbonotsvaga rimwe basa because they are top talent as defined by our market. The top talent that is defined by our market sometimes is the wrong one. Don't ndaona CV so ya Rose. There it is. Akashandra this brand listed by stock exchange. Akazoshandra this brand rekadai riri kubotswana akazodai. And then we use that to say this is top talent. And yet we are not even sure kuti kuma company kwangari was that person really top talent? What was their contribution? What were they doing? So we end up then kanata kushovaunza titi top talent, they come in very expensive because makutenga mazita mahombaya rather than the performance yemunhu. And then madaro manje anosvika achikonzeresa havoc to your existing pay structures. Akutanga kuvengwa nevamwe manje kuti ko iye ari kupiwa mari yakawanda akamira sei. And kakawanda kacho sometimes our definition of top talent, you then bring in these people and they are ineffective. And you are wondering, but akamboshandira XYZ limited munhu. Ari kana risk manager, kana whatever, production manager, and we pay the price. So there is a costly side to retention if it is not managed properly. And then limited fresh perspective. So overemphasis on retention can prevent organizations from saying, uyu munhu yakavari top talent, but hasisiri. Saka unonzwa munhu wacho achitaura kuti mazuva eCovid ndisitakaita kuti company isawire pasi. COVID yatopera tatori pane imwe stage. Are you still top talent? And isusu as business leaders, are we also asking ourselves those questions? Because toramba takangogara tichingoti ndine top talent and we'll be talking about it, but we may not actually be holding top talent in our organization. And then the next issue that we need to look at as well, the arrogance. Sometimes that top talent can have a significant challenge. Kana ndiri kutozikanwa ndini wacho unotaura kuti company yako Rose inonzi distinctive inotodonha ndikabva panapa. Vashandi vanenge vachitoudzwa vese manje kuti ndini ndakabata chinhu ichi. Such that ndikangobva chete. Saka ndiri kutarisa the negative side of it. So whilst you've brought your top talent into your organization, tarisai zvinhu izvozvo. Because you could then be having arrogance that sets in as a result. And if you overdo it also, they say, hey, top talent, yedu Rose, top talent. I end up also being arrogant myself and anchakwanisa. And then dismissive behavior. Some top talent can be arrogant and ignore or belittle ideas from others. Ndini top talent pana izvakutaura zvinabasa izvi. So now when that happens, that becomes negative. Apa uri kuritena munhu wacho uiti ndiyo top talent. Apa ari kudismissa some of the ideas that are coming from people below. And vamwe vacho, they have got resistance to feedback. They reject constructive criticism. I'm top talent, what can you tell me? And so forth. So they view it, when you do a critical analysis of them, you know what, this is a personal attack. And then credit grabbing manje. Sometimes that can also be very negative. I've set in, I'm arrogant, and then I will take undue credit sometimes for the team's efforts. Can you see what I'm talking about? How you've brought in this top talent, and if you do not watch out for all these things that I've been talking about, and you're not monitoring that top talent, it can turn toxic. And you may be the one that is actually responsible for it, because Rose, everything's really right. And the employees may not like that. I just want to talk also very briefly about the talent pipeline, if you may allow me. I'm just trying to see whether I'm good for time. It looks like I still am. So this is what a talent pipeline looks like. Ndroti muchi contextualize now this whole issue around talent attraction, talent retention and so forth and how it works. So it starts at the recruitment stage. I'm not going to bore you with the details around recruitment, but I'll tell you a story of a friend of mine, a South African. He says to me, Rose, you know, I was recruiting for my business. And then there was this young man that I really wanted in the business. He was ticking all the boxes. Said, I called him in. It comes back to this this discussion we're having about generations, right? So he says, I brought in this person. Here's my contract. And I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to give you. These are the benefits. This is the pension scheme, and so on and so on. And then he says, the young man looked me in the eye and said, why are you telling me about a pension scheme? I don't intend to be with you for more than 2 years. This is and this young man said this. He said, he's my generation, by the way. So he says, Rose, I looked at this young man. Why is this young man telling me he's not intending to be with me for 2 years right at the beginning? And he says, I then said to the young man, no, that's fine. And the contract was not signed. He said, and I went and I looked at my number 2. Was not ticking the boxes as much as this young man. He says, I slept over it. Tomorrow I called the young man. I said, come here, young man. Where do you want us to change, Abba? And then he says, and then I want X. He says, the reason why I then gave this guy what he wanted, he was top talent, 1. And then 2, the second reason, he says, ndakakurara ndichifunga ndikati kamfana kakauya panapa 2 years idzodzo ndoda kumushina. You get it? I get the best and everything out of that young man. And when he was talking to me, so what happened to that young man? Did he leave after 2 years? He goes, 6 years. And I said, so why is it like that? It's because I realized that this was top talent and the things that I needed to tweak were so small. So this young man is saying, and this could have pension, pay mari yangu ndodaku double on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. I can make more money than your pension fund. So why are you giving me a pension fund and things like that? I know in Zimbabwe we've got our NASA and the like. So sometimes just doing that basic minimum and allowing this generation to do what they need to do. I'm not sure whether our stock exchange is as robust at the moment, but to allow them to get their money and I don't know whether spinning also is legal, but for them to actually then get something out of it, isn't it? So that's the recruitment pipeline. So this is what happens now. Once you have recruited, on the right, we are talking now about onboarding and training. If you want to retain top talent, papane problema. In organizations, what we do, busy. And we just say, uchango chishanda na John. So our onboarding is not really focused, it's not really orienting someone into our culture and other more important things. Someone says when you get into some organizations, you are given the 3 T's. And these 3 T's, apane table, desk rakwe, tea up, toilet up. And that's the full effect of induction. It's after that, depending on whether or not people are happy that you are there, you may find yourself leaving organizations. And research actually shows that some people, because of poor orientation, top talent, about 42% may leave the organization during the probation. Vamwe vanogara 1 year vachichika kukanganisa ma-CV yavo. So those ones now, that top talent is no longer giving you anything because arungoti ndikada kuti ndi resign pa probation. Rose ba anenge akushortlista for my future positions. Acha ndi shortlist. So ndo vanonzi vanogarira vana vavo kana ari marriage and so it's more or less the same thing. Ndakangogarira kuti 1 year ipere kuti CV rangu risakanganisike. Now when you've got such a talent, IC3 talent, apa yongo itora top talent. And then on the retention, I've already spoken about it. I'm not going to talk about it. Career growth, I've already talked about it. Exit. That's what we're talking about. So it's the natural progression of talent management. Talent comes in. Now, if recruitment, top talent up, unfortunately, They do enough not to get fired and they don't go. And then iwe manje pamozo papadzi ndakutsvaga top talent youya top talent yaya, you will have a blocked talent pipeline, because those people will come in, they are great talent, but makafano recruit not nicely, and they are vanokanganisa kumuva kwe talent. And vakadaro manje ndo vanenge vachitoti kana vachitosvika, ini ndakambosvika pamwe pabasa pekuti ndichimhanya mhanya, I was young, new job. Zvikanzi Rose, uchiri kumhanya zvako. Panapa panonzi pamachipisa. Ndo zvaakandiudza munhu iyeye. Ndikati zvikanzi iro riri kuendere maclients pamachipisa panapa. Patakauyawo ipapo munhu anga ane 20 years ari pabasa ipapo. Patakauya taimhanya sezvamuri kuita izvi. Ezvinezvi takatoregedza. Right. So those are the people now who are sitting in your pipeline who will actually make me. Then I'm just now because I was asking myself, but if it's so bad, why has she been here for 20 years? If I didn't ask myself that question, probation, and it could be happening with a lot of people. So what am I saying? You attract talent, you onboard it, you retain it, you give them career growth, but chitarisa whether they are still top talent. If they are not, exit them. At least good, and munhu ngaazivewo futi kuti it's time to exit. You know what they say, kuti sometimes when uri pa stage up, kana player pera, sometimes you have to exit that stage. So kana ari top talent chaye ane pride in their work, anotozivewo futi kuti it's my time to exit. So it becomes a conversation, not an acrimonious exit. So when I'm talking about exiting top talent, you are hoping that they are real top talent and they are actually seeing for themselves and then they exit at the right time. Organizations, and your organization is going down with them. So I've already talked about the blog talent pipeline. I'm not going to go into it, but I just want you to appreciate that also you may bring talent into the organization, place in the right place. So they have what it takes for your organization, but because murukumanya, especially HR, job description, sometimes we need to vary these jobs to accommodate top talent, so that we can actually be using this thing that we need, but it's not sitting in any job description. So why not enrich that job description and make sure the best out of the match between what they can give to the organization and what their skills are. A lot of employees talk about uninspiring leadership, and top talent yacho iri block a pipeline pap, because there are some people you training programs that come back with new ideas. Guess what? So organizations are spending a lot of money on programs, the training, but at the end of the day, that training is not being used at all, because those leaders, so that's not the way to treat top talent. I'm going to talk about top talent exit, the reasons. I've already talked about those. We said overwork or burnout, underutilization, they will leave if I'm feeling underutilized. Because can I do a sense of purpose and pride, like what I talked about earlier on. I want to see what my contribution is to the organization. And then there's this whole issue around unfair distribution of resources. So you bring in top talent, they are supposed to be doing something, and then they are not being used because you don't have resources. So what I'm saying is go back to that talent pipeline, the recruitment part. Mama organization to expect equipment in 6 months to recruit a muna no gara for 6 months akamira equipment. So when it comes to recruitment of top talent, it is just in time. Anti finance people, you say that about stock, right? So with your top talent as well, I think bring them in at the right time. This is what I'm saying, such that the resources are available and they are able to actually use that top talent, their talent as we go. Again, I'm going on this issue around exiting of top talent. So if your top talent now is now misaligned with my company goals, it's time to exit them. Because maybe my organizations in Zimbabwe, because the market actually globally. So when it has changed, if there is now a misalignment, I think that's on the next slide, if you don't mind. If kanapasisina alignment, I think the idea is to say, let's look, do we exit or not? We have already talked about toxic workplace behavior. We have talked about Nyadzema budget constraints. So I have brought in this top talent, but I can no longer afford it. And it can like that, what do I do? We need to have conversations. I know of 1 or 2 people that have said, because I loved the environment, I loved the way my boss was treating me, there was purpose in that job. A few cuts, maybe reduction of fuel allowance, and it on a specific issue. That's top talent. That is, I want to use the word, that is loyal. And that top talent will do that only if they believe in the vision and the way you are taking this thing. Otherwise, they will not accept that. Can we go on to the next slide where I want to talk about retention across generations? Remember, I talked about attraction across generations. So what retains generations in the workplace? And like the last time, I'm not going to talk about everything, but just looking at some issues about what retains people. So if you look at the company culture, for instance, favor inclusive, purpose-driven workplaces with strong social values. So you may find my generation, I am not going to work for an organization, irikuta toxic waste into the environment. Because they've got their own beliefs and values and so forth around that. When we go to the Generation X now, which is ourselves, we will appreciate structured environments with clear leadership. And then the millennials, they prefer collaborative, open work environments. Documents, as long as we are putting these issues together. And when we look at issues about leadership style, this generation is retained if there is a transparent collaborative leadership. Because sometimes they don't know where to stop. Information I see a level. But even they're wanting it, you are being transparent to pay information. So I think just getting the balance between information which is coming to them and what happens when you are wanting to make decisions. To what extent do you involve them as well? Because transparency decision making. Whereas the Generation X is talking about appreciating autonomy and a results-driven management. And then the millennials are talking about value mentorship and open communication. Saka what are we saying? You are a leader of an organization, whether it's family owned, whether it's a corporate and what have you, understands what retains these generations. So what it means, hybrid. You've got to have hybrid methodologies of retaining, especially if you have decided to take the various generations in the workplace. If you don't, you'll be surprised. I've got this generation, why? It's because maybe you have not catered for their needs about what makes you retain them. So what's my call to action? The call to action is to say, build a strong employer brand, because if you've got a positive reputation, you will attract high caliber candidates. Leverage on employee referrals. So if you are not a top employer, Vashandu wako as well, they will not refer others to your workplace. We actually measure this in the workplace when we do employee engagement surveys. We call it the employee net promoter score. Organizations need to know who are the detractors and the people who are actually promoting their organization, because that will have an impact on whether or not the organization can attract the right talent at the end of the day. And then streamline the hiring process. You want a fast, transparent recruitment process. Engage passive candidates. This is an interesting one. When you want to recruit talent, when you talk about passive candidate, it's me, Rose, going onto LinkedIn, don't go traga, type certain words, and then I find this person who is not looking for a job, not let's talk. Saka, also know that your top talent must subject of talent search by other organizations as well. So I've heard my boss wachitaura kuti anoenda kupi muZimbabwe hamuna mabasa. Now, I sometimes get like 52 searches a day on my LinkedIn profile. And some will then be saying, let's talk, do you want to come and work in Saudi Arabia or wherever? And what have you. Saka, your own top talent, they are also they are passive candidates. They may not be looking for a job, but there are some people who find them attractive. Saka, how do you ensure that you keep them? Very important. And I like it when organizations prioritize diversity and inclusion. So you don't want also too female-dominated or too male-dominated or in a certain age group. Kana watu wanova kumashingo, kana watu wanova kugweru, vakangozara mukambani. Vana mkanya, vana moyo, that sort of thing. We want a diverse workplace. And also when you recruit, Kanandiri Rose, I don't want to recruit another Rose. Recruit somebody else who will complement my personality. So that at the end of the day, you've got a balanced team and things like that. So that's where the diversity is. So I'm challenging you as business leaders to say, you go and check the diversity of your workplace and see what it's telling you. Tinenge takazara nana Dr. Chirisa 10 pakambani 1. Personality, it means the organization is not really benefiting from diversity. So go back and look and let's see what it tells you. The other call to action, let's have transparent and open dialogue with this top talent. Ensure clarity of expectations, growth opportunities. Vape your company vision. I go not go to vision ndangu. You don't do that. You actually tell them, this organization is hoping to open a branch in a year or two. I don't feel like they are part and parcel of it, isn't it? Personalized communication is important. All the time is a way of communication. No. Sometimes just call me in and let's have a one-on-one and let's have a discussion. Some of these cultures actually can become so toxic. I remember another organization, this was a workers' committee that was telling me, the culture, I'll say team player, and why bosses runs corridor. And this person says, unongo to fill up to ndikatopinda mu office ndobva ndatongotumira email yekuti good morning boss kuti ndizoibudisa pabreza uka kuratidza ndai kumhoresai. So you've got these tight cultures where you do not have open communication. Let's recognize and appreciate top talent. And recognition, guys, is not about money. It's about kungonyorerwa utsamba yabvo kuna MD yekufara kuti wakastopa a loss because you did 1, 2, 3 kana kuti wakagadzirisa temporarily a machine tikakwanisa kumeet production, that sort of thing. Two-way feedback is also very important. Allow employees to voice concerns and suggestions. And leadership involvement. You should engage with top talent to inspire and to mentor them. I thank you.
Rose, thank you very much for sharing with us your wealth of experience from your 32 years in the human resources sector. You all agree with me that we've had a very insightful morning. We've learned how to build a business and how to grow it. We've learned how to penetrate global markets. We've also learned how to retain top talent and also the complexities that come with it. So I would like to give our presenters from the morning session a round of applause. I know that we've been hearing a lot has been shared. I know some of you may have questions, and we would like to give you an opportunity to actually ask those questions. I'd like to call upon our Father to facilitate this segment. Thank you.
Well, good morning, good afternoon. Thank you. Let's put our hands together and appreciate our presenters. I trust you that every one of us who have learned something. We may take our seats. And when you get to learn something, put a decision to it. And the action plan for what you have learned. That's the quickest way to implement what you learn. You get a point, just make a decision for it. And after making a decision, just put the action plan so that you don't waste what you learn. Normally we fill our notebooks with what we are not using because we don't decide on what we learn. Just practice. You learned it, quickly decide. I'm going to have a workshop. I'm going to have a staff meeting. I'm going to do this immediately. Yeah, that's the quickest way. If you take long just filling your pages, you're not building a library. I hope you get what I'm saying. Once again, let's appreciate our presenters for I want us to get a moment to discuss from all that we have learned, and we'll look at all these ideas. A comment from Prince Maprang on YouTube, okay? The idea of kids following their dreams is the reason why we are struggling to create transgenerational wealth, because each generation is starting on a fresh page. Wow, I think it's coming from the presentation of the family businesses, how you can look at it. Maybe I can also share some things that I've studied. The nation that has established more successful family business is USA. Most of the global companies that we see are actually family businesses. They're at a percentage of almost 94% being family businesses. But they craft them in a way that they differentiate between not just owning it and the expertise that come. They have a way to turn a family business to become like a public business. But what they remain with is the control of the fabric that remains with the culture of the family, the benefits of the family, and the boards can choose whatever they choose, and they can even have probably one member of the family representing the interests of the family, and the rest is done by others. And they've done Some of the companies are now over 120 years old. Some are getting to 200 years old. So it's just about the structuring of what the parents start and how they can go on. It's amazing that some of the companies that you can see today, you might not even think they are family businesses, the way they have been structured. You can't even notice in its operation that this is a family company. It's a business run by a family. They've structured it in a way that can go across. You see the JC Penney's, the Colgate Palmolive. If you look at Colgate Palmolive, it does not look like a family business, but it is. You look at Walmart, Boeing, they don't look like they are family companies, but they are. They just structured them uniquely. The family still has their controlling share, and the other thing is being done by others. And they can change, appoint new different presidencies coming in and so forth, but there is something they keep. What we need not to block ourselves is that ability to learn what others have done and how they are doing it. Like the Disney, it doesn't look like it's a family company, but it's still a family company, even up to today. But when people look at the impact, it's spread going to China, Hong Kong, France, taking Europe, America, Southern America, it still looks like it's just a global, but this is a family company. So you need to have, and the training of children, realigning and so forth. I know the pain that a parent may have to have labored for so long and only to find your child is ignoring what you are doing. Choro kuneva neta zvoun'anga vanongoshuvawo kuti mwana wake atore makona awo. So sometimes we need to have probably certain dialogue that we need with our children, and not only just dialogue, but a certain network that is genuine, that we can also send our children to go and talk sense into our children. Because sometimes a child can come and resist the mother or the father, but they can have a different hearing when they are hearing from the friend of the mother or from the friend of the father. I have seen that with the white community. They do that so much. You can find a son is then sent to stay in Europe all the way from Middle East because there is a friend there they need to school the child into understanding the value system that is there. They do that because it's not always easy to keep the line. It's a fight. Yeah, it's a fight. You don't want to do something that expire, but you need also a strategy to do something that lasts. Okay, let's open up the questions and look at all the presentations that have been given to us. I hope you have learned like me also. Okay, who has a question? You're welcome. You can introduce yourself and then present your... Can you be fast?
Thank you, Papa, for the opportunity. My
You're
name
welcome.
is Innocent Machabe.
You're welcome.
I represent Classrite Business Consultants.
You're welcome.
My question is to Zimtrade. From the presentation, maybe I was not hearing properly. It seems they're focusing on physical products that say you're exporting this. I don't know whether you're also looking at the export of services from Zimbabwe to the world. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation, for your question, sorry. In my presentation, it was focusing more on products because you find most people do products, but we do also assist with services. So services have a different route. Because as you would know, right now you could actually be working for a company in a different country. And how then also you access your payment as well is also very different. And also penetrating those markets is also very different from a service perspective. So, but we do also assist in terms of creating partnerships, if you'd like, and also maybe even getting some market leads in different markets to do with services. But we do also do services as well. Thank you.
Wow. On that note, I don't know, on that note, I just wrote on my paper, I'm very concerned with the Zimbabwean product or Zimbabwean companies going abroad. I don't know whether it is legal frameworks, restrictions, or so, but we hardly, when we travel across the world, we hardly meet something written from Zimbabwe. You can get something from Kenya, from South Africa. You can get from Algeria, Egypt, Morocco. You can go in whether it's in shops or industries, you meet those things, but I don't know whether there is a restriction or, because I see some products that are here in Zimbabwe that are worthy to actually be in the shelves in Dubai or in China or in UK or America, but you can actually go in Middle East, you can miss even series drink. But you can't see Mazoe crash. Ringa rakatenda zvechibackdoors unotoona kumikoto. So umwe antoya nebox rake or something arutondowandisa utozonzi pane mukomana anazvo zviri kuseri uko machida orange crash pane anounza. I'm not understanding the philosophy around it. Others, you can find shoe polish. You can get it from others, whether they are dry cells, batteries, etc. There is always a product that you meet and you can identify, this is Taiwan, this is, but Zimbabwe, I don't know, maybe you can clear that to me. I don't know whether it's your problem also, but to me,
Thank you. There are actually a few of our products out there. Our blueberries, our peas. They're written in the shops like Netherlands, the UK. It'll be written a produce of Zimbabwe. But we are working with some partners in the different markets, including UAE as well, to be able to send our mazoes, our local Cervitas, as well, to have presence in those markets. So usually it also is an issue of registrations, what is required for them to actually be in the retail spaces. But for fresh produce, it's usually it's a much simpler process if you have your certifications. But for some of the companies...
Our people schooled enough to know this, because if you find drinks, there are drinks that you can find too many varieties from South Africa. vakaudzwa kuti kudii ivo vakuSouth Africa kuti vaite izvozvo varieties of products. Our people chero akatengesa drink rinenge rinofanira kungobva pagweru roenda pakadoma, rabva pakadoma roenda kumasvingo zvapera. Is it because kune system iri kuti zvinhu zvedu hazvibudi muno here? Because the laws, I think if it's laws, the same happen with Kenya, South Africa, Morocco, or there's still the same law they face. So I think unless there is a special clause that restricts Zimbabwe, something like that.
No, there is no clause that restricts Zimbabwean products. I want to refer back to the issues to do with what the market requirements in terms of your labeling, your certifications, but there is nothing that is restricting Zimbabwean products from being out there.
So we have a lot to do. So we have a lot to do.
Thank you, Apostle.
You're welcome.
My name is Talent Doroba. I'm with Invent. I'm an insurance consultant. As a follow-up, Tatenda, to what Apostle was asking, I just wanted to find out if there are any countries that we cannot export to, probably due to sanctions or embargoes. And if they are there, is there any way around that? Thank you.
Thank you for that. There are no countries that we cannot export to. Usually, if it's an issue of duties, perhaps, that they will have higher tariffs than most countries, because that country will be already producing that product and you'd want to penetrate. So they would then, your products being exported or imported in that country will attract higher duties. But otherwise, there are no countries that are restrictive to Zimbabwean products. Thank you.
Wow. Anyone other question? You're welcome.
Thank you, Apostle.
You're welcome.
Many thanks to our presenters. My question is I want to refer to Mr. Mautsa on the presentation on Entrepreneurship Masterclass. I have a question that I want to just find out from the presentation that you did. I understand that you are doing diverse businesses, and you also talked about having multiple streams of income. I wanted to ask, well, how you align yourself when you are running a different, a consortium of companies that you are running, and you want to be in a position where one of area is not staffed or is not, it's got equal success. You know, they were saying that says a master of everything is a jack of all trades. How best can you align yourself to ensure that all these companies that are under your consortium are not affected whilst you are running it at the same time? Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. I think you have cited it right, and I always say it when presenting also to say the greatest mistake I made then when I was starting, I was young. You know, when you're young, you're overzealous with little or less guidance and knowledge. So I started doing many things. But if I'm to go back, you would start with one thing, you would do it so well locally, before even going to the region. You do it so well, so that everyone will know that you are so good at this. So that by the time you go even into the region, you would have established some systems. You are just replicating what you are just doing here. That's number one. And number two also, you then diversify. I'm sure there's a topic that I think Dr. Chirisa is going to talk about that, into related areas as well. So for me, I'm construction. If I was to diversify, maybe I would then open some hardwares, brick making machines, etc., etc. Why? Because it's related. So I started because I didn't have capital, so I started in training. So I established the Customer Experience Association of Zimbabwe. I was in my early 20s. So it was sort of a formal business. And I realized that, you know what, it was good Contact Center Association of Zimbabwe then. And all the corporates were subscribing as members. But I realized that there's a gap in tech for call centers. There was no one with a call center in Zimbabwe then. But in South Africa, in Philippines, people were doing outsourcing. Then I set up a tech company doing call centers. It was the first actually in Zimbabwe. Then I set up an educational institute training people for call centers, which is called Chartered Institute of Customer Management. I used that to replicate to get into the region. So they are related. So from there, I then got into construction and energy. So it's sort of a journey that is sort of progressive and following a certain path. But I start with one thing, be so good at it, then you diversify it. That's what I think. Yeah.
Wow. But sometimes it's so amazing to hear you say, I started this, I started this, I started this. Ikoka, I started Digachak. Kani kanonetsa kuwanika mune vamwe kuti I started. Because it's easy to okay. There's a hand here. It's easy to say I started, but okay, you're welcome.
Thank you, Apostle, for the opportunity. And to the speakers, thank you very much. I have two questions, and the first one is to Dr. Mautsa. I was actually laughing because, Apostle, you were about to comment on what I was about to ask. And the question is, maybe as a startup business, what strategies do you recommend for securing initial funding or investments? And my second question is to Mrs. Nhamo. And the question is, how can small and medium-sized businesses maybe develop a competitive human capital, or the top talent you're talking about, strategy with limited resources? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, my sister. And I know funding for every business, even if you are at a certain level, we always cry funding. And right now, maybe before I go there, the challenge is we want to start with funding before we start. So I believe funding follows good ideas. So believe me, if you have a good idea, I can bet you always get funding. Funding follows good ideas. So if you have an idea that is all over, sometimes it's so difficult to get funding. So how then can you maneuver from maybe my experience and the people also that I've been watching closely? You then develop your capacity around yourself and your business and your entity. What capacity? Not only for the business, for yourself as well. Because when you start a business, yourself, you are also a product, because you are selling yourself first before you sell a product. So if you develop capacity around, you are knowledgeable about your line, your line of trade. So if you are knowledgeable, you are so experienced, you are connected also with people, that's capacity around your line of business as well, because they will refer you. So if you develop capacity, and the little dollar that you get, deposit it in the bank and quickly withdraw if you want to use it. So make it a policy. If you get $10, you deposit, you withdraw. You deposit and you quickly withdraw. While you are building a track record with the banks. So for me, I used to struggle to get funding for my projects. But until when I started doing that, so that when we were also facing some challenges, I have some clusters that I did in waterfalls, cluster homes. And guess what? They were funded by ZB Bank. That was my first cluster projects. But I now have many in medium density, in low density suburbs. But the first one, why was it funded? I didn't have sufficient capital to fund that. Even I didn't have anything actually. But I used to deposit. And I then went to say, okay, I've been putting my money, here's the track record. Can you give me maybe 20% of the money, and you will see, and I'll prove you. Once I'm at this stage, you top up the money. So you have developed the capacity and there's a track record to back up. But we, as entrepreneurs, it's the tragedy is when you join everyone to say, no, tukubirwa mari ne government, my policy are going to change. Don't follow that. Deposit and quickly withdraw if you are scared. Then you create a track record. Even for your own salary, if you get US dollars, you go and deposit actually in your account as salary and you withdraw quickly. Don't worry about bank charges. It's also part of business as well. So you can also go and borrow on personal capacity as well. So once you have then scaled to a certain level, it's easy. For now, I'm not yet there, but it's now easy for me to approach pension funds. I've created a track record to say, look, I've done these many clusters. We have 26 in Highlands, 48 in Heartfelt, which is big, but I didn't start there. I started with only 7 units in Waterforce. Then I've created capacity. You go to the next entity, and banks, they don't have money. I'm going to pension funds. So you need to also to be at a lookout to say, okay, I'm in manufacturing. Which entities have appetite to finance manufacturing sector, companies? So not every bank supports manufacturing sector. Not every bank supports construction sector. And not all the pension funds support your sector. So you need to also to figure out which sectors and create relationships with those potential funders as well. Thank you.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
Okay, I think talking about funding and labor and top talent, one of the things that I've realized is that the Zimbabwean model has not moved from the old way of corporates of owning labor. They never shandi 70, they never shandi 100, and so forth. And then I feel big. But vashandi vavo, there's this whole issue. Yes, we talk about capacity utilization in the industry, even in HR as well. We are talking about workload analysis. Vashandi vavo 70, vari kungoshanda kana 30% utilization, mumwe 10%, mumwe chi. So I learned in my business, and I'll share this example, to say, and our labor act is there, it's got different types of contracts, where an employee can work for 4 or 5 people. And so I formed what I call associate consultants, because ndaitora consultants cannot either graduate trainees cannot vandotora market ndoti ndevangu vari kundishandira 100%, thou shall not have any other employer. And kakawanda kachototitya manje kuti vakazonoshanda nevamwe vanotora ma-ideas. Inene I've got one thing that I say, there's only one Rose Nhamo and she cannot be imitated. Kana wakutoita another one, it's a cheap imitation of me. So in the consultancy world. So at the end of the day, atinabasa kuti munhu ari kuti akauya omboshanda neni one job evaluation exercise ozoenda unoshanda nemumwe munhu ukoko. Hatina kana basa izvo. So we start now talking about not having competition but cooperation with the like-minded businesses, which is a thing chatisingaite very well. So I've got what I call associate consultant. An associate consultant is someone and a knowledge of HR, but andisi kumuda full time, but ndiri kumuda for specific projects only. So we've got maresa atinenge takato agree kudhara kuti for this type of work it will be $200, it will be $100. Saka pandinge ndakuita kana kuti tender for something which is HR related, I take that person's and we talk upfront. Let's normalize nyaya yekuita ma contracts, guys, in our businesses. Totinyorana contract pay work. Trikuita basare XYZ limited, we're going to pay you 200. This is what I'm expecting from you. Tonyorana. Totoita basa. Kana atopedza apedza. Asisina kugara ari on my payroll. And then inini ndinenda takurana ne payroll yacho. So it's about looking at flexible work practices, putting them in our businesses. And secondly, I don't mind if Rinos comes to me right now and said, Rose, you know what, pane chibasa che 500,000. Pane kuti ndiende ndega, iwe une skill yandoda ino. Ngatiite ika combination, ari kubvumidzwa maconsortium, totoenda kuLesotho tonorowa mari yedu todzoka. So this whole issue around employment contracts, kuda kuona labor, and so forth, this is causing expenses to our businesses which are not necessary. And we need to start working as cooperators, not as competitors. Thank you.
Wow. I think from your point, I think one of the things that might be missing is being able to link your product with the labor you want and the time you want it. Because most of the times people are just knowing I need to employ. And they are not attaching the employment to the time, they are not attaching the employment to the product. So at the end, they'll end up having a staff that has already overstayed the life of the product that they are staying for. And the bill still remains and the product is no longer in the market. So somewhere, maybe it needs to be like a training or something to attach the product to the work and the life of the product. You then find you can have a product that expired last year, but you still have a staff in force today. Do you know the timeline of the work you want to do or the product you have? And does this workload requires you to have a full time or just a contract? And having someone in contract, does it mean your company is small or you are small? You know, don't employ for prestige and kill profitability. I hope you get that part. Okay. Anyone else a question? All right. Thank you for that.
Praise the Lord.
You're
Glorious celebrations to you all. Thank
Praise
you,
the Lord.
Apostle, for this opportunity. All protocol observed. My name is Abigail Ngarumbizwe Maboni, and I'm a fintech specialist. My question is directed to Rose. I wanted to find out if top talent is self-made or one is born a top talent. And if I implement everything that you taught us and nurture my employees, will I produce top talents, or top talents is nature or it's nurtured? Thank you.
I was dreading that question. It's like the chicken and egg one, isn't it? What came first, the chicken or the egg? I think I would like to say that a lot of, depending on what level you are operating at, a lot of the things are actually self-taught. So for instance, if I'm at a leadership position, the biggest talent I require is not the technical. I'm not sitting there if I'm in finance and the cheetah ledger and what have you. I'm actually sitting there and harnessing people to give me the results that I want. Saka iyo yo manja, I told you anything chiri like inborn. Yes, it helps because you can then work on it. But you know, then on the emotional intelligence. And with emotional intelligence, it's something that can be learned. But if you are not a natural at it, it means as an organization, you are continuously rehabilitating those skills. So if I've got a natural person and a natural talent, I spend less in developing them. So if you remember from my presentation, I kept talking about continuous improvement. I kept talking about you can come in with talent today, and then within 4 years, you are no longer a top talent. So there's an element of both. You have to enhance yourself. So you have to, and it's not about a top talent, enhance my skills. Whereas someone who is not top talent, company is going to develop. Do you get the sort of rhetoric that is going on? Company, you know, I develop and I say, there are so many free courses online where you can even be certified nicely and enhance yourself. So I think it's within a person, but you have to actually work with at least a raw material, that element, be it of leadership, be it of a person who is at least has got ambition. Because you build on ambition, to be honest, if you want to be top talent. If you are not ambitious, you can go gara, can go mirror to panimuna chanti track.
Yeah. I can say this, you didn't choose to be born. And you didn't choose where to be born. You didn't choose your mother or father. But where your life will go, you have to choose. You have to choose. So instead of sitting there waiting for the natural things to happen, you might die before it happens. You better choose to happen and begin to happen. Okay, I saw a hand somewhere.
Thank you, Apostle, for the opportunity. My gratitude to all the presenters. I only have one question to Rose. Ma'am, you spoke on the point of one becoming or not becoming a top talent in a certain number of years. And you said there will come a point one has to discover that they have to exit. My question now is, kindly assist from an HR point of view. How do you assist one? Probably they are not noticing that they are no longer adding value to the organization. And in my understanding, I'm sure if one is exiting, there's need to do an exit interview. You have an employee who is actually doing their job, but they are no longer noticing that they are no longer adding value. But the pride of being a top or an excellent employee is still being carried around. At what point can an HR person assist this person to realize they are no longer adding value? Either they have to upskill or they have to exit. Thank you so much.
Okay, the conversations about exit start when you get in. A lot of organizations now, be it CEOs and top executives, unotosvika uchitoziva kuti ndine 2 ma 5-year terms at the very maximum. So already the conversation about your exit, your succession planning is happening at the very beginning. So organizations that know what they are doing, small or big, should actually have those conversations when you start. At what point are you going to exit? So that you are actually prepared mentally. We have had people, when you then have these conversations at the end and they were not prepared for it, they don't last after they leave the workplace. It's because of that. That's number one. Number two, performance conversations. If it's just about what did you do, your targets and what have you, and it's not talking about your career progression and your growth within that organization, in a performance interview, I'm kugara na manager wako. Ndopamunotanga kuzvotozviona ipapo kuti okay, when we are discussing now, this is the objective of your organization, I'm still linked and I'm still in line. There comes a time now when these conversations are happening and we are seeing that the organization is going in a different direction and we are not, if you are having, I call them painful, powerful conversations with your top talent, if you are having them, zvinenge zvisingatombonyadzisa kuti zvitaurike. 1. 2, I've actually seen where it's done well, where an employee anototaura kuna manager wake waari kutoningera kuti ini ndikuona kunge chi, I'm not adding value. Mukazonzwawo makubvunzwawo reference ndenge ndichimbotenderera ndichitsvaga vanenge vane ka sort of rapport and they appreciate that that's happening. Zvinezvi kungodaro chete uri kutotsvaga basa wotodzingwa ipapo, even wanga uchida kuenda in 2 years or in 2 months and things like that, is because we are not allowing those conversations to happen. So it is very important when we have our performance reviews, which may be quarterly, half yearly, have a discussion about career yemunhu, where they are adding value to the organization, and most possibly have a discussion around exit. It's not because I hate you, it's because we needed your skills for that particular time. Business is the name of life cycle. Some are young, their growth is some they maturing stage, some have plateaued and what have you, and there are different type of skills that are required for each level in the business. So those conversations, let's have them regularly. You don't have them when exit interview, no. But from the beginning, uchitongoshika.
Wow, thank you. My encouragement as we're about to take a break is, can you write 3 decisions you have already made on these presentations? 3 decisions. 3 decisions you have already made on this presentation that were given to you. What are the 3 decisions you have taken and which you're about to implement? The 3 decisions that you need. That is very, very important for you to do. It gives value to a meeting. It gives value to a meeting. I've made this decision, 1, 2, 3. I want you to note that the theme of this summit is establishment strategy. Not everything that starts gets established. So you're being given pillars that can help you establish. And not everything that is growing will keep on growing. Not everything that made noise at the start will keep the noise. So while you are listening to all this, you must be able to pick up what makes you established. And when we say you are established, is it that we are talking about you just being alive or progressively alive? Because there is a trend that people have of telling people, I have been in business for 10 years, yet in 10 years you have never made $10,000. I have been in business for 20 years, yet the highest amount you collected in 20 years was 7,000. So in that way, to then talk of establishment by length of time, it does not make sense. So you have to then come to see, is time and progress relating? Are systems, structures relating? Are these things that I'm doing right now able to function like a solid institution? Or I'm still having so many hesitance in too many areas? And if you are not looking at it in those areas, I'm telling you, you might have a long time, but you are still not established. Because we can't use time to call you established, because there is a difference between 10 years of age and 10 years of experience. They are different. So you really need to then, I'm glad with the presentation that we're coming. They really needs you to go and look at your structures, systems, your approach, the culture you are creating in your businesses, etc. Whether this is going to make you really last, or you're just doing a trial for a long time. There are many people today who move around saying, I have been in business for the past 15 years. But you're not even supposed to say 15 years because you have nothing. You just didn't die. So because you're alive does not mean you're established. So something better has got to be put in place. So from this human capital insight, entrepreneur insight, this trading and export, this is taking you somewhere to have a real thinking, to say, I think I need to take this approach. That's why I said decisions matters. The decisions matters. Because if you have made decision, it means from here, you will sit now for the strategy of implementing the decision and the security for your decision. And then you find yourself having the establishment that you need. I hope you get the insight. This is very paramount. Don't mistake length of time with establishment. They are different. You would find there are 3-year-old businesses that are established, and there are 15-year-old businesses that are not established. You would find, just like in families, there is a young couple that is already established, and there is an old couple that is still moving from one suburb to another. I hope you get what I'm saying. So you can then use length of time to measure and authenticate establishment. Something bigger than that has got to be in place. Something bigger. Even if you get $1,000, because $1,000 in the hand of an established entity is different from $1,000 from a company that is not established. It's the same amount, but what is going to happen with this 1,000 will be surprising you. So establishment is not going to just give you value or secure direction or value for your money, product. It has got to go further. It goes further than that. And you must work on it to have that. Praise the Lord. I believe this is going to open our minds. Let's have a serious dialogue and formulate things that are going to make us really establish and go higher in what we are doing. Praise the Lord. Shall we stand? Let's appreciate our presenters. I felt like each one of them needed to have a second session again. Like they needed to present some more, because the subject they touched, they really, really matter to operations of the life of companies. The Lord bless you and bless you more. Let's have the Secretariat. God bless you.
We're now going to take our lunch